Chapter 462. Gu Mengmeng recalled the things that happened after she came to the beast world. Although Elvis and Leah had always treated her well, before they mated, no matter how much they promised and swore to her, she had never trusted them completely. There was always an obvious uneasiness in her heart. Even on the day she confirmed her relationship with Leah, she still thought that Leah would eat her up. After that, after experiencing many things, Elvis's companionship and warmth slowly made her open up her heart to her. Trust was a luxury, and she had once thought that she no longer possessed such an ability. Smiling, Gu Mengmeng replied, "Don't believe words easily, people will not betray me. Don't make promises easily, I will not betray others. Haven't you heard of it? There's only a fine line between promises and lies. The former requires the speaker to take it seriously, while the latter requires the listener to take it seriously. So, this is the most unreliable thing. How can I trust it?" Leah turned his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng, asking, "You don't trust promises, but trust people's hearts?" Gu Mengmeng knew that Leah was asking her about allowing the Eagle Owl tribe to mate with the females in the tribe, so she smiled and replied, "I don't trust people's hearts, I trust you guys." Leah was taken aback, and even Elvis stopped in his tracks to look at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head shyly and said, "Both of you have the absolute ability to build Saint Nazir into the strongest tribe in the entire beast world. Even without me, the rise of Saint Nazir is just a matter of time. My appearance can only be considered as the icing on the cake. A strong tribe will never lack loyal subjects." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently and said, "Without you, Saint Nazir would just be a cold shell. You're the one who gave Saint Nazir hope. You're the one who gave life to Leah and me. You're not just the icing on the cake, you're the only key to our fate." Gu Mengmeng's heart thumped at Elvis's serious attitude. She hugged Elvis's neck and gently placed her forehead against his, saying, "Silly hubby, do you know? Before I met you, I was an unmarriageable person." Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng and did not interrupt, just quietly listening to her narration. "I don't have any sense of identity or trust in marriage. I don't need to tell you the reason, but you know it." The corner of Gu Mengmeng's eyes drifted to the tribesman behind her. She had already lied about being the daughter of the beast deity, so she definitely could not mention her parents' divorce in front of outsiders in the future. But previously in Sauter, she had mentioned it to Leah and Elvis. Gu Mengmeng believed that the two of them would not forget what she said. Sure enough, Elvis and Lee's eyes darkened as heartache appeared on their faces. Chapter 463. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and looked at the mark on her collarbone. She smiled faintly and said, "I'm actually very sorry that this mark could not be branded on my heart, because it proves my selfishness." Elvis frowned. He was not angry, but his heart ached. He did not like the expression on Gu Mengmeng's face. She was clearly smiling but looked so sad. Gu Mengmeng said, "Initially, I agreed to mate with you because the atmosphere was too confusing. Another reason was that I did not want to be alone anymore. I believed you. I felt that if it was you, you would definitely not betray me or abandon me. So, at that time, I selfishly wanted to possess you and capture you. I did not love you deeply. If we only mated now, I believe that your mark would definitely be on my heart." Elvis gazed into Gu Mengmeng's eyes gently. His blue pupils seemed to have condensed all the deep emotions under the night sky on her. He slowly opened his mouth. His voice was low and melodious like a cello. "Xiao Meng, thank you for your selfishness, because it gave me a lifetime of happiness." "You don't blame me?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis. She wanted to say something but stopped. Elvis shook his head and said, "To be able to leave my mark on your body is already a blessing of 3 lifetimes. To be able to be so close to my heart, how can I blame you?" Leah remained silent for a long time before finally saying, "Gu Mengmeng, I'm sorry." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She thought about what she said to Elvis. From Lee's perspective, he must have been blaming him for the lie he made up to make her accept Elvis. Just as she was about to explain, Leah spoke first. "After that incident, I thought of many ways to remedy it. I still owe you a complete apology. I was too arrogant. I always felt that everything was going according to my plan. I neglected your feelings and caused you to be hurt again. Li's expression was too solemn. This made Gu Mingming's heart tug hard. He himself was covered in wounds and wounds. How could she ask him to consider the past, the present, and the future for someone he didn't even know? Gu Mingming suddenly smiled. She patted Li's shoulder and said, "Compared to an apology, I want to hear a confession more." Leah looked up with disbelief in his eyes, but when he saw Gu Mingming's sly smile, he knew that he was thinking too much. Gu Mingming replied, "Because I can reject a confession, but I can't apologize." As expected, Leah took a deep breath and changed back to his usual seductive and affectionate look. He leaned against Elvis and rested his chin on Elvis's shoulder. He wagged his large tail in front of Gu Mingming and said, "You obviously enjoy the feeling of me being by your side, right?" Gu Mingming scoffed and said, "How is that possible? I can't wait to find a senior monk to deal with you, you evildoer." But Leah did not believe her and said, "Then why did you ask me to scram back the other time? You even said that if I don't return to your side, you will ask Elvis to break my legs." Gu Mingming was deeply worried about her intelligence and regretted for the 10086th time that she should not have been rash and fallen into this cunning fox's trap. Clenching her teeth, Gu Mingming said, "I'm just afraid that Oraton's good cabbage will be taken away by you, you sly fox." Chapter 464. Gu Mingming tried to pull her hand back but to no avail. She clicked her tongue and said, "Can you maintain a consistent style? It's hard for me to accept you like this." Leah looked up at Gu Mingming and said, "Make me stay if you like me, hug me if you want, throw a tantrum at me if you want, tell me to scram when you hate me. Don't feel guilty because you didn't mate with me. Staying by your side is my own choice, because your selfishness is what I wish for." Gu Mingming said, "Why? It's all in the past." Leah said, "As long as I don't die, you will never be in my past." Gu Mingming could not reply and could only remain silent. The group of onlookers behind were watching with great interest. Gossipy. Breaking news. The former Ninth Highness of the Messengers tribe degenerated into a beast pet. Is this a corruption of morals or a distortion of human nature? Please watch Gu Mingming vs. Leah *AVI. A small portion of these people were former members of Saint Nazir while the majority had just joined this time. The new members did not know what had happened between Gu Mingming and Leah in the past, but this did not stop them from watching the gossip with great interest. They're holding hands, holding hands. Look, the great messenger's gaze is melting. I bet 2 giant beasts that the great witch doctor will definitely be able to take the position. No, I don't think so. Look at the cold aura that the great tribe leader is emitting. He will definitely not let him take the position so easily. Just as the main leads were silent and the onlookers were exchanging glances with each other, the group finally returned to their original campsite. The females surrounded them and felt strange at the things the males were hugging. Mandy was the one who was more familiar with Gu Mingming among the new females, so she plucked up her courage and asked, "Great messenger, what is this?" Gu Mingming then regained her composure from Li's words. Rubbing her face, Gu Mingming said, "This is bamboo shoots, it's the best for stewed meat. Let's do a small pot later. Those who like it can register with Leah and let him distribute it to everyone." "Food? Do I have to add chili too?" Mandy was obviously afraid of the spiciness today. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "If you guys are not used to eating chili, then don't put it in. I will make a special dish for myself." Mandy lowered her head in embarrassment and said, Gu Mingming took out a bamboo cup and handed it to Mandy. "We found this in the bamboo forest just now. It's perfect for holding water. You are the first beauty of the tribe, so I'll give this cup to you first." Mandy was extremely surprised. She wiped her hands on her body and carefully received the cup. She looked at Gu Mingming and asked, "This is really for me?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Of course, you are the first beauty of the tribe, you should be rewarded." Mandy was so excited that she was about to cry. Holding the bamboo cup with both hands, she spun on the spot like a toxic dragon drill. Gu Mingming maintained a polite smile, but in her heart, she was ridiculing. This era of material scarcity, what has it done to women? How could a piece of broken bamboo be so happy? Chapter 465. He still had to rely on Leah to cook. Fortunately, he was not affected by the events on the road and had already recovered. Gu Mengmeng intentionally avoided him, but he acted as if he did not notice and continued pestering Gu Mengmeng, asking, "It's also my first time eating this thing, you should at least give me a demonstration, right?" Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to nod her head. She took a small step back and widened the distance between them. She called Elvis over to cut the bamboo shoots into slices before cutting them into strips. Elvis had a side effect from cutting ginger during winter. No matter what he cut, the thickness would be similar to that of ginger slices. Unless Gu Mengmeng had special instructions, they would all be treated the same, mechanized assembly line production. Gu Mengmeng set up a small pot. She first used the fat meat to make some oil, then placed the cut beast meat into the pot. Fire was different from gas. There was no way to control the heat evenly, so she could not fry it slowly over a small flame and could only stir-fry it quickly. After barely stir-frying the meat until it was golden brown, Gu Mengmeng scooped the meat out and added ginger and chili into the hot wok. After stir-frying it until it was fragrant, Gu Mengmeng poured the meat back into the wok and added water. After everything was done, the surroundings were already crowded with people. Gu Mengmeng looked up and saw many pairs of longing eyes staring at her. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and said, "Here. I added chili." Mandy took a small step forward and said, "Great emissary, I'm not afraid of chili. Can you share some with me?" Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and smiled. "It's my honor to be able to have dinner with the first beauty of the tribe." Mandy blushed and slowly walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. She sat obediently by the side and watched Gu Mengmeng's back view as she circled around the pot. Her eyes filled with admiration. Gu Mengmeng used beast skin to pad the handle of the pot and poured the bamboo shoots into the pot. She then used chopsticks to stir the bamboo shoots evenly before using a stone board to cover the pot. Turning his head to look at Leah, he said, "That's the basic process. Normally, you can collect the juice after stewing it for an hour, but the meat of wild beasts is harder to rot than domestic pigs, so you can cook it for another half an hour or so. Season it with salt before serving." "Oh, right. Do you still have any potatoes?" Leah nodded. "There's more," Gu Mengmeng said, "then cut 2 potatoes and soak them in water. Just put the potatoes in the pot and stew them together. Leave the water that was used to soak the potatoes and don't touch it. After the starch has settled, pour away the excess water and leave it for the final thickening." Leah nodded nonchalantly and looked at Gu Mengmeng. Suddenly, he went forward and pressed his face against the tip of Gu Mengmeng's nose. He stayed there for 2 seconds and smirked at Gu Mengmeng's frightened face. "But how long is 1 hour? How long is half an hour?" Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and took a small step back. "You don't have to be so precise. Just make it about the time you usually stew potatoes." Leah wrapped his arm around Gu Mengmeng's waist and pulled her into his arms. Using his height advantage, he shrouded her under his shadow. He looked down at the flustered Gu Mengmeng and said in a low voice, "I'll teach the other males how to make stewed meat with bamboo shoots first, then come back to eat with you." Gu Mengmeng pushed Leah a few times but to no avail. She could only maintain this pressuring posture and look up at Leah. Actually you can stay and eat with them. You don't have to come back to accompany me." Chapter 466. Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly and said, Make more and ask Oriton to come over and eat with us." Leah leaned forward and approached Gu Mengmeng slowly. Gu Mengmeng retreated with all her might until her spine was bent to its limit. She had no choice but to place her hand on Lee's chest and stuttered, What are you doing?" Lee's long and narrow eyes were filled with sadness and he said in a low voice, "The more I ask you to be more selfish towards me, the more you want to push me away?" Gu Mengmeng remained silent and did not reply. Leah hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with one hand and did not allow her to avoid his eyes. He then said softly, "You drew a boundary and did not allow me to cross it. I can only stand at the boundary and look at you that I cannot touch no matter how long I stretch out my arms. greed and desire have forced me to break through that boundary again and again to get closer to you, but you always escape even further the moment I cross the boundary. I don't want much, I just want to push the boundary a little closer to you, so that I can touch you with my fingertips when I stretch out my arms with all my might. Then I will know my place and not cross it, just a little bit will do so that I can reach you, just a little bit. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and remained silent for a long time before saying, maybe, the scenery behind you is even more beautiful. Why don't you try turning around? Leah laughed, a rather miserable laugh, and asked, you are abandoning me? Gu Mengmeng did not say anything and just frowned. Leah suddenly let out an sound as if he had suddenly realized something and said, yes, in your eyes and in your heart, I am no longer the daddy Leah from before. You have never allowed me to become your male, so abandoning, to me, is a luxurious word. Leah let go, turned around and stood still. I will go teach the males how to stew bamboo shoots and then stay there to eat with them. You don't have to let Oriton go there because of me. Although I am not the one who is favored, but I am also happy to have another person by your side who can make you happy. With that, Leah slowly walked to the side and did not look back again. Lee's body heat still lingered on Gu Mengmeng's body, and when the night breeze blew, it disappeared without a trace. Winter was clearly over, but it was still so cold. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng from behind and kissed her forehead. As long as you call for him, he will come back. Gu Mengmeng's eyes lit up. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Maybe I should let him live. Elvis was confused. Gu Mengmeng said, we have a famous saying there, if you love, please love deeply. If you abandon, please be thorough. Don't be ambiguous and hurt yourself and others. Elvis remained silent and did not speak. Gu Mengmeng stood behind Leah and stared at his back as he demonstrated how to make bamboo shoot stew meat in the crowd. She said, maybe from the start, I shouldn't have taken a laissez-faire attitude and given him a buffer period. This kind of attitude made it harder for him to let go. It was hard for him to give up, and he was at a loss for what to do. Elvis kissed her hair and said, no, you're not wrong. If you hadn't been soft-hearted back then, Leah might not have survived that winter. Gu Mengmeng looked up in confusion. Chapter 467. If you didn't allow him to enter the cave when I was injured, when the snow melts this year, you might only see a dead fox at the cave entrance. Gu Mengmeng stared at Elvis in a daze. After a while, she said, he was at the cave entrance when the stray beasts came? Then why didn't he come in to help? Elvis's expression froze. He lowered his head and said, Xiao Meng, I'm sorry. Gu Mengmeng frowned and looked at Elvis without saying a word. Elvis pursed his lips and said, I pretended to faint during the battle to create a chance for Leah to enter the cave. I was afraid that you would be too embarrassed to mate with him because I was awake, so, don't be angry. Gu Mengmeng turned her head away, not wanting to say a word to Elvis. Elvis was like a child who had done something wrong. He followed behind Gu Mengmeng and pulled her hand. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you and pretended to faint to make you worry. But Leah could not hold on any longer. If I had done that, he would have died in the snow. I was afraid that I would regret it, and also afraid that you would, so I was wrong. If you are angry, you can hit me? Or twist my ears? As Elvis said that, he transformed his pair of wolf ears and placed Gu Mengmeng's little hands on his ears. He bent down to accommodate Gu Mengmeng's height. I promise I won't hide. Twist my ears until you vent your anger, all right? Gu Mengmeng sighed. If I remember correctly, we had just mated when the stray beasts rushed into the cave, right? Elvis, do you really love me? Elvis was completely frozen. He hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms. I know you are angry. I will accept any punishment you want, but you are not allowed to leave me. Not allowed. Do you love me? This was a very serious question, because Elvis clearly remembered what Gu Mengmeng had said before. If you have a change of heart in the future, I will bring my sons back to where I came from and never come back again. I will make sure that you will never find us again. After experiencing Gu Mengmeng's jumping into the lake incident in the afternoon, Elvis was extremely sensitive. He was too afraid that Gu Mengmeng would leave him. He did not know if Gu Mengmeng would be disappointed in him, suspect his feelings, and waver in her decision to stay. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. I did not say I want to leave you. I just asked you, do you really love me? Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly and refused to let go. He desperately wanted to prove his love but realized that all his words were so pale and powerless. He did not know what to say to make Gu Mengmeng believe that the reason he helped Leah create that kind of opportunity was precisely because he loved her too much and did not want her to be unhappy in the slightest. After pondering for a long while, Elvis held her hand and placed her palm on his chest, saying, If I dig it out for you to see, then you won't leave, all right? Gu Mengmeng's heart trembled. Gu Mengmeng felt the vibration coming from her palm and only spoke after a long while. You don't have to use this method to keep me here. My son is still here, so I won't leave. With that, Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand. Elvis refused to let go. He was afraid that she would injure herself with brute force, so he could only use his other hand to hug her waist tightly to secure her in his arms. Frowning, Elvis could feel the uneasiness in his chest that was throbbing in unease. You don't even dare to say you love me. Why are you still hugging me? Let go of me. Gu Mengmeng twisted and struggled, kicking and hitting Elvis. Chapter 468. Elvis's voice was shaking along with his heartbeat. On the other hand, Gu Mengmeng's tantrum gradually calmed down after he repeated, I love you. Realizing that Gu Mengmeng was no longer struggling and no longer trying to push him away, Elvis carefully loosened the distance between them. Looking at Gu Mengmeng, who was dripping with tears, Elvis became even more flustered. Kissing her tears, Elvis's heart ached terribly. Don't cry, don't cry. I don't know what to do when you cry. I promise I won't lie to you anymore. Don't cry. Gu Mengmeng lifted her tear-stained face to look at Elvis, saying, Of course it's wrong for you to lie, but it's even more wrong for you to secretly open the back door for someone else right from the start of mating. How much do you really care about me that you would create such an opportunity for other males? Elvis shook his head, saying, No, Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng did not give Elvis any chance to explain, only continuing, Yes, Leah is your good brother, you guys have many years of relationship foundation, you can't just watch him freeze to death outside. Then can't you just tell me directly? I'm such an unreasonable person, must I watch him court death and not stop him? Don't tell me that if you just tell me directly, will I stop you from letting him in? Elvis was at a loss, asking, Since the outcome is the same, don't be angry. Gu Mengmeng howled, How can calling your brother into the cave to hide from the wind and me calling my ex-boyfriend home while my husband is unconscious be the same? Elvis shook his head at Gu Mengmeng's howl, saying, It's not the same, it's not the same. Gu Mengmeng sniffled, wiping her tears, saying, Anyway, you don't love me that much, I'll leave with my son once we return to St. Nazaire. Since you like Leah so much, you can continue living with him. Hearing that Gu Mengmeng was leaving, Elvis hurriedly hugged her in his arms, saying, I don't like Leah, I hate him, really. I hate him the most, I don't want to live with him. Gu Mengmeng did not say a word, only turning her head to one side. Elvis also turned his head, looking at Gu Mengmeng's little face, saying, I wish it were just the two of us living in the cave for the rest of our lives, with no outsiders. But I'm just worried that you'll get tired of looking at me every day. Gu Mengmeng glared at him. You're making a false accusation? Elvis shook his head. I don't dare. How would I dare to hit you? I'm just worried. Elvis was halfway through his sentence when he stopped under Gu Mengmeng's glare. He corrected himself and said, Do you really not like Leah? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and remained silent for a moment. Then she replied gloomily, Maybe. I still like him from the bottom of my heart. That was why I allowed him to pester me with all sorts of excuses. If I wanted to avoid him, I could definitely avoid him. But I indulged him. He was right. In fact, I quite enjoyed being surrounded by him in every possible way. I rejected him and refused to give him a response, but at the same time, I accepted his kindness. This is very selfish, the behavior of a scumbag. Elvis wanted to say something but did not say anything in the end. He just hugged her in his arms and patted her back lightly. Because of the strange atmosphere between the messenger of the beast deity, tribe leader and witch doctor, everyone was extremely cautious, afraid that they might get into trouble. For the next 2 days, everyone set off when Gu Mengmeng said to go. When Gu Mengmeng said to stop, everyone stood at attention. Even the pampered females did not dare to complain. Finally, on the afternoon of the second day, Gu Mengmeng and the rest returned to Saint Nazir. Aside from the topic, an unforgettable night, audience friends, it's time to say goodbye to everyone again. Chapter 469. On the day they returned to the tribe, Leah was chased out of Elvis's cave by Gu Mengmeng. He stood at the outskirts of Elvis's territory and stared straight at the entrance of the cave. In the past, he had also stood here before. That time, the weather was still very cold and he was also in despair. Other than Leah, Elvis was also ordered to move to the outermost room of the cave, while Gu Mengmeng and her 4 sons stayed in the innermost room. The people brought back from Sauder were handed over to Barit and Colin to make arrangements. The 16 valued females would choose their homes and territories in turn, then dig a cave. But Gu Mengmeng naturally did not need to worry about these trivial matters, so she just stayed in the cave to accompany her sons and did not go anywhere else. But even if she did not go out, it did not mean that the people outside would not come in. After Colin saw Gu Mengmeng, he went home and told Sandy that Gu Mengmeng did not seem to be in a good mood. He did not know if she had quarreled with Leah or with Elvis, but the 2 males looked as if they were on the verge of death, one sprawled at the entrance and the other outside the cave. Sandy was worried about Gu Mengmeng and hurried over. She first saw Leah, who was indeed dispirited, sitting on a tree branch and staring at the entrance of the cave. Sandy looked up and asked, "How did you offend our Gu Mengmeng?" Leah was extra polite to Sandy because Gu Mengmeng treated her very differently. Seeing Sandy's question, Leah jumped down from the tree and said, "I crossed the boundaries she set and wanted more greedily. So she ran away." Sandy frowned and looked at Leah, throwing a sentence at him, "Don't you know how to speak properly?" before leaving. Leah sighed and leaned back on the tree branch, wondering if Gu Mengmeng would come out later to fetch or send Sandy off. That way, he would be able to see her. Sandy walked past Elvis and glanced at the listless Elvis, asking, "What about you? How did you offend our Gu Mengmeng again?" Elvis did not even lift his head and sighed, "My lie was discovered." Sandy frowned and said, "You deserve it." Before leaving deep into the cave, the 4 little ones ran out happily and surrounded Sandy for a while. Gu Mengmeng was a little jealous and said, "How many days have I been gone?" "She's closer to you than she is to me, her own mother." "Are you trying to please your mother-in-law in advance because you know that your Aunt Sandy will give birth to a wife for you in the future?" Sandy was not shy at all. She sat beside Gu Mengmeng and allowed Qixin to jump into her arms. She hugged him and stroked his little head. "The 2 outside are about to turn into salted fish. How long do you intend to leave them hanging like this?" Gu Mengmeng was not shy at all. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and pulled Sandy's little hand. Then she patted her son's little buttocks and said, "Go ask your father to bring you out to play. I want to have a private conversation with Aunt Sandy. If you dare to eavesdrop, I'll run away from home." Gu Mengmeng shouted the words "run away from home" at the top of her lungs. No matter how slow Elvis was, he knew that she was warning him. Although it was a little complicated, it was the first time his wife had spoken to him in so many days. So, Elvis did not dare to delay and brought the 4 wolf pups away with him. Chapter 470. Gu Mengmeng nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. She hugged Sandy's waist and leaned into her arms, just like how Sandy had leaned into her arms when she was injured. Gu Mengmeng whimpered and looked up at Sandy. "Sandy, I feel so terrible." Sandy gently caressed Gu Mengmeng's hair and said, "Both of them know their mistakes. If you are still angry, let them fight each other until their faces are all swollen, then you can calm down and forgive them." Gu Mengmeng's eyes were filled with tears. Gu Mengmeng smiled. "This time, they are not in the wrong." "It's me." Sandy widened her eyes. "How could you be wrong?" You are the messenger of the beast deity, Gu Mengming. Gu Mengming rubbed Sandy's round little face and said, but the messenger of the beast deity is also human. There are times when she is greedy, weak, at a loss of what to do, and when she lies to herself. Sandy could not understand such profound words. But she knew that Gu Mengmeng was really feeling terrible now. She had never seen Gu Mengmeng so depressed before. Her heart ached for her and she frowned. Sandy asked gently, then what exactly happened? Can you tell me about it? Gu Mengmeng thought for a while but realized that she did not know where to start. She gave a bitter laugh and sighed, I mated with Elvis, but I can't forget about Leah. I had both sides in my hands and all three of us were tortured. Leah did not even have a title and was despised by everyone. Elvis was even worse. His newlywed wife had an affair and was mentally cheating on him. Not only did he have to pretend to be deaf and mute, he even cooperated with his wife to smash the wall because he was worried that he would be abandoned. 2 outstanding males were suffering because of my selfishness. But none of them came to blame me. Instead, they coaxed me, gave in to me and took care of me. They were afraid that I would be the slightest bit unhappy. Sandy blinked her eyes and asked, isn't that good? Then why are you angry? Gu Mengmeng looked up. Good? What's so good about it? I couldn't let go of Leah, so I was being disloyal to Elvis. I let Leah have fantasies about me, but I couldn't give him a title, so I was being disloyal. I was the one who was being disloyal and unjust, so I was filled with guilt every day when I faced these 2 males. The more I wanted to make it up to them, the more I owed them. I can't breathe anymore. Sandy asked, didn't you already give Leah a status? Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy with a dumbfounded expression. What do you mean? 3 big words. Sandy asked, isn't he your pet? Everyone in St. Nazaire knows. Gu Mengmeng frowned and said, what status does a beast pet have? Sandy asked, why doesn't being a pet count? Which female didn't have a pet at home? It's just that most of their pet beasts are half beasts or crippled beasts that can't transform at all. None of them are at Lee's level. Gu Mengmeng stared at Sandy in a daze, not knowing what to say for a moment. What the F***ck? Keeping a courtesan as a mistress is a F***king convention. Chapter 471. Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded. What kind of atmosphere was this? Even husbands were helping their wives find. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng was speechless. Sandy continued, although we have not mated with a beast pet yet, and there is a high possibility that we will not mate with a beast pet for the rest of our lives, but this does not stop us from treating them well. Take Nina for example, her 40-over partners are so envious of that beast pet. At least when she goes out, that beast pet would definitely be by her side. It is not an exaggeration to say that Nina treats that beast pet better than all her partners. Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt that it was understandable. After all, in the modern world, many young ladies treated their dogs better than their boyfriends. For example, if a dog bit her boyfriend, the girl would pretend to hit the dog's butt and say, "I a little rascal, don't bite people in the future, do you understand?" Then she would act coquettishly and help her dog to deal with the aftermath. But in the other case, if the boyfriend bit the dog, she had not heard of such an example, but she guessed that there was no escape even if they did not break up. Sandy drank a mouthful of water, then continued, "In the beast world, there is such a huge disparity between the ratio of males and females. How many males do not even have the chance to speak to a female in their entire lives? There were also many males who had mated, but other than that one time, they couldn't even touch their own female. Compared to them, don't tell me you are not treating Leo well enough? What exactly do you owe him? Why do you feel burdened?" Gu Mengmeng said, "Leah is so outstanding. He should have a good partner." Sandy laughed and said, "Why? Did you tie Leah up so that he could not find other females? Or did you let Elvis use force to suppress him and force him to be your beast pet?" "I don't think so. He keeps bragging about how he is your beast pet. Every time he heard others talking about it, his tail would go up to the sky. How does he look unwilling?" Gu Mengmeng said, "But..." Sandy passed the cup of water to Gu Mengmeng and asked her to drink a mouthful of water, then continued, "But what but? Gu Mengmeng, Let me tell you, the males in the beast world are all stubborn and will never change their minds after seeing someone else. If they don't like you, that means they don't like you. No matter how good you are, it's useless. They can't keep you. But once they fall in love with you and acknowledge you, then even if the beast deity appears, there is no way to make them give up. If you really feel that letting Leah be your beast pet is a grievance to him, then just mate with him and accept him. Wouldn't that be the end of it? Why are you so conflicted? Gu Mengmeng bit her lip and said, I just mated with Elvis, it hasn't even been half a year. Sandy stared at him and asked, What? Elvis objected. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly shook her head and pulled Sandy, who looked like he was going to argue with Elvis. Elvis did not object. On the contrary, he even created opportunities for Leah. Sandy sat down and said, That's more like it. In the beast world, it was a taboo for males to stop females from mating, because if a female had too few partners, she would not be able to receive the best care. Females were originally weaker than males, they would die if they were not careful, so they must receive the best care in all aspects. Furthermore, if the female has too few partners, it will also lead to a lack of reproduction. Some races have perished because of this. Aside from the topic, ask, who still hates Sandy now? Chapter 472. Gu Mengmeng thought of Ian and the Eagle Owl tribe and nodded instinctively. But Sandy took Gu Mengmeng's nod as agreement, so she said excitedly, You also think it makes sense, right? You are the messenger of the beast deity. If you think it makes sense, then it must make sense. Gu Mengmeng wanted to explain, but Sandy continued, What did you say just now? What loyalty and guilt, what else? I can't remember. You probably feel that if you accept Leah, you will owe Elvis? Then I have to ask you, what do you owe him? You are the messenger of the beast deity, you have even given him the position of your first partner and the right to mate before you give birth to a child, and you still say you owe him? What do you owe him? Take a look, how many powerful men in the beast world did not even have a child of their own even when they died? But him, in just one winter, he already has a partner and a child, and he's still not content? Does he want to go to heaven? Gu Mengmeng was speechless from Sandy's rebuttal. She started to regret teaching Sandy those messy modern words. Ever since Nina was gone and she had mated with Colin, this girl's personality had changed drastically. She was much more cheerful and straightforward, no longer the yes man she was when they first met. Actually, this was quite good, but it was an exception when she used it against herself. Gu Mengmeng could not spread the modern concept of marriage to Sandy. Even if she did, it would still be a fantasy story to Sandy, an unimaginable thing. The ratio of males to females in the beast world meant that the modern concept of marriage would be conserved, but as a modern person, she would still be sensitive to it if she wanted to adapt to it. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng did not say anything, Sandy kept her anger in and continued, You don't owe Leah anything. He treats you of his own free will, you allowed him to treat you well, that's a great gift from the heavens. Why don't you look outside? The number of people queuing up to treat you can form a line from St. Nazaire all the way to Sauter. But other than Leah, who else have you given a chance to? But let me tell you, although no one knows what Leah had experienced in the past, I can tell that before he met you, Leah seemed to be using an extreme cruelty to squander his life, cruel to others and even more cruel to himself. Gu Mengmeng remained silent. What exactly did Leah go through? She had only heard Elvis talk about it. Leah had avoided the important parts and talked about the trivial, so that she could piece together a vague outline. But as for the details, unless Leah was willing to tell her, no one else would know what he had gone through. Sandy drank a mouthful of water and continued, But ever since he met you, he has become a different person. No, it should be said that the Leah of the past had always lived in the night, and you were like the sun, lighting up his world and granting him a new life. Do you know when was the first time I saw Leah smile? Meng asked, When? Chapter 473. Sandy paused for a while before continuing. Actually, it's not up to me to decide who you want to mate with. I feel that you are the happiest when Leah and Elvis are by your side. I want you to be happy forever. You won't blame me for talking too much, right? Gu Mingming shook her head and leaned into Sandy's arms, saying, "You are my best friend. Of course you have the right to express your opinion on my matters, because I know you are the person who treats me the best in this world." Sandy blushed and said shyly, "That's not it. Elvis and Leah also treat you very well." Gu Mingming sighed. "Elvis is my husband and the father of my child. It's only right for him to treat me well. But Leah, it's precisely because he treats me so well that I can't build my happiness on his pain and torment. That's too cruel." Sandy held Gu Mingming's little face and stared straight at her with her round eyes, saying seriously, "Do you know what's the most cruel thing you've done?" Gu Mingming was momentarily stunned and shook her head in confusion. Sandy said, "Do you still remember when you fell into the lake last year? That day, Leah suddenly came to my house and asked me to cook a pot of watermelon for you. I was still angry at him and couldn't care less about being afraid of him, so I used the wooden stick to hit him, wanting to chase him away. He hit me a few times harshly, but stood there in a daze, not moving an inch. If it wasn't for Bode stopping me, I might have accidentally killed him that day." Gu Mingming was extremely surprised. This Sandy really dared to do anything for her. The first time she resisted Nina, it seemed like it was because Nina was bad-mouthing her behind her back. Leah was clearly someone she was so scared of that she wanted to take a detour, but she actually dared to fight him for her, Sandy recalled as she continued. "I was so angry then, I asked him to scram. I told him to stop pretending to be kind in front of me. If he really cared about you so much, he should have cooked it himself and sent it to you. Guess what he said?" Gu Mingming thought about it, but could not imagine how Leah would have replied at that time. Sandy said, "He said that he didn't even have the right to cry for you, not to mention preparing food for you. I didn't understand what was going on at that time. Later on, I heard from Colin that you sang a song for Leah and the lyrics seemed to have a line like, 'I have already lost the right to cry for you?'" Gu Mingming lowered her eyelids and muttered, "It's 'I have lost the right to cry for you.'" Sandy, "Yes, that's the sentence. You don't even know, when Leah said those words, his entire being was like a ghost. I even suspected that I could directly pass through his body. There was no life at all at that time. It was deathly still." Gu Mingming forced a smile and said, "Didn't you use a stick to hit him? The stick didn't even miss, so how could you pass through?" Sandy blushed and said, It's just a metaphor. Think about it, how frightening Leah looked in the past. If he was still exuding a fearsome aura like before, how would I dare to hit him? That day, he didn't even have that frightening aura. It was as if he was made out of snow, soulless, yes, soulless." Gu Mingming's heart twitched. So at that time, she was not the only one who was dealing with emotional wounds. Leah, that hurtful person, did not have a good time either. Chapter 474. Gu Mingming's lips curled up when she recalled Lee's expression that day. Sandy suddenly sighed and said, "But just now. When I looked at Leah, he looked like he was half dead and actually said some incomprehensible words, something like, 'I crossed the boundary, so you ran away.'" Gu Mingming pursed her lips and did not say a word. She remembered that Leah had said those words to her on the way back from Sauter. But she could not bear the responsibility, so she backed off. Sandy said carefully, "I am especially grateful to you for matchmaking me with Colin. Because I am very, very blissful now. But I hope that you are also blissful. Leah is a good male. Even if you don't want to mate with him now, don't chase him away. Without you he really can't live on." Gu Mingming bit her lips and said, "But Elvis," Sandy sighed and said, "You know about Elvis and Lee's duel, right?" Gu Mingming nodded. Elvis had already told her about this during the winter. Sandy continued, "Colin told me that he accidentally overheard a conversation between Elvis and Leah. Elvis said that he seemed to be a thief who stole Lee's happiness. In the beast world, snatching is not shameful, but stealing is. I guess that Elvis kept creating opportunities for Leah because of this reason. If you accept Leah, then Elvis will only get one more position as the first partner than Leah. To both of them, it's the same no matter who takes this position. But if you reject Leah, it's fine if Leah can find a better female to mate with. But do you think that this possibility exists?" Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something, but Sandy did not give her a chance. She answered her own question directly, "Not possible." Gu Mengmeng almost bit her own tongue. Seeing that Sandy had no intention of letting her interrupt, she just obediently listened to Sandy. Sandy said, "Then, there is only one possibility left. Leah had nothing left to live for because of you and passed away in the end. But what about Elvis? He has to feel guilty for the rest of his life because this happiness originally belonged to Leah. He stole Lee's female, stole Lee's life, stole Lee's life." Gu Mengmeng wanted to say that this was not the way to use vanishing beauty. But looking at Sandy's furious expression, Gu Mengmeng did not dare to interrupt her. She just nodded obediently, indicating that she understood. Hearing Gu Mengmeng's reply, Sandy nodded in satisfaction. So, no matter from Lee's or Elvis's point of view, keeping Leah is the best choice for them. Whether you want to mate or not, it's up to you. Don't feel pressured just because Leah treats you well, as if you owe him something if you don't mate with him. Please, it's natural for a male to treat a female well. If you have to mate with someone who treats you well, how many partners would you have? Let me tell you, there is no such rule in the beast world. Mating depends on the female's mood, it has nothing to do with anything else. If only Miss is happy, you can wash me clean and lie down. If only Miss is not happy, there is no use even if you lie flat. Gu Mengmeng's face was filled with horror as she thought to herself, "Darling Sandy, can't you be more tactful with your words? I'm still a baby." Chapter 475. You value your lover over your friends. Gu Mengmeng accused. Sandy turned back to look at Gu Mengmeng, then nodded seriously, as if admitting to this accusation. Gu Mengmeng said, "I have nothing to say now that you admitted it so calmly." Sandy blushed shyly and said, "When you went to participate in the beauty pageant, you left the 4 cubs with me. In order to take care of them, I have neglected Bode and Colin for a long time. I promise to make it up to them once you return. I will go back first, they are all waiting for me." Gu Mengmeng. Sandy twisted her body and trotted out. Gu Mengmeng sighed helplessly, but was not angry at Sandy. Sandy had already done enough for her. The sisterhood that she had not obtained in the modern world had all been satisfied by Sandy. It was great that she could be happy. Ow ow, the little wolves scrambled over and Kanwo was the first to jump into Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng instinctively reached out to catch Kanwo, only to realize that he was covered in mud. She said helplessly, "What did you do just now? Why are you so dirty?" Ow ow ow, Kanwo recounted everything that had happened just now, but his mother did not understand a single word. Rubbing Kanwo's head, she looked at Hutta, Qixien and Jiaoyu, who had all rushed back. Gu Mengmeng shouted outside in exasperation, "Hubby, boil water for the children to bathe." "Oh!" Elvis howled, then ran in happily. "Xiao Meng, you are finally willing to talk to me." Elvis was overjoyed. He took a step forward and pushed the 4 cubs onto the ground. Then, he hugged his wife and heaved a long sigh of relief. "You have ignored me for so many days. If I had known that you would be willing to talk to me after throwing these 4 into the mud, I would have thrown them away long ago." Gu Mengmeng raised her brows. "You threw my sons into the mud?" Elvis replied, No, they jumped by themselves. I couldn't even stop them." Gu Mengmeng said, "You promised me that you will never lie to me again." Elvis was silent. Then, he pinched his ears and knelt beside the bed. "Wife, I know I was wrong." Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis's henpecked look with a dumbfounded expression and said, "Stand up right now, right now." Elvis shook his head and said, "No, Bode said that if I make my own female angry, I must admit my mistake with a good attitude so that I can be forgiven. I don't want you to be angry and ignore me again, so I admit my mistake." Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and asked, "Bode taught you?" Elvis nodded and said, "Yeah, Bode sent Sandy over just now. You two wanted to chat and didn't allow us to listen, so Bode and I brought the 4 of them outside for basic training." Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, "I will settle the score with Bode later. You better forget everything he taught you, not a single word." Elvis was stunned for a moment and hurriedly stood up. "All right, I forgot." Gu Mengmeng sat up and looked up at Elvis. She said, "My man should be a man of indomitable spirit. My man won't do such a useless thing like kneeling down to his wife." Elvis nodded and said, "All right, I won't do it if you say so." Gu Mengmeng nodded in satisfaction and said, "Tell me, what kind of basic training did you give these 4 little ones? They're so dirty." Chapter 476. Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes at Elvis but did not pursue the matter further. She looked at her 4 sons who had been thrown onto the ground and frowned. Pointing at Jiaoyu, she asked, "Why is there no mud on third brother at all?" Elvis turned his head and met his third brother's eyes. His gaze unknowingly became gentle. Stretching out his hand, Jiaoyu immediately jumped onto Elvis's lap. He placed his front paws on Elvis's chest and licked his face intimately. He even used his little head to nudge his chin. Elvis replied with a purr that only wolves could understand. Jiaoyu leaped back to Gu Mengmeng's back and placed his chin on Gu Mengmeng's waist. He laid down obediently and allowed his mother to stroke his fur. Elvis looked at the mother and son gently and replied, "Jiaoyu's eyes are so similar to yours, clean and transparent." Looking at his eyes, I could not bear to throw him away. Gu Mengmeng shook her head in exasperation. She turned to look again. Although Huda and Qixin also had mud on them, most of it was concentrated on their limbs. It seemed like they had run back up on their own after being thrown down. But Kanwu, Elvis saw Gu Mengmeng looking at Kanwu, and before she could ask, he answered first. He jumped into play and refused to come up no matter what. I couldn't even stop him. You can ask Bode if you don't believe me. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, "You are obviously bullying my sons for not knowing how to speak. But would he dare to expose you?" Elvis's smile froze and he did not dare to reply. Gu Mengmeng sighed and did not pursue the matter. After all, if she lectured Elvis in front of his sons, Elvis's authority as a father would be greatly reduced. Heaving a sigh of relief, Gu Mengmeng stood up from the bed and called out, "Steamed Bun Dishwan Kanwu, stand at attention." The 4 little fellows did not know what standing at attention meant. They only knew that their mother was calling them, so they all rushed to Gu Mengmeng's feet and huddled together. Kanwu even took the opportunity to rub the mud on his body onto Elvis. Seeing how he was in a bad mood but did not dare to punish him in front of his mother, Kanwu's eyes, which were identical to Elvis's, were filled with pride. Elvis clenched his teeth. This Kanwu was indeed very annoying. Gu Mengmeng did not notice the fight between the father and son. She only asked her 4 sons to line up and follow behind her out of the cave. Elvis had finally been pardoned, so it was naturally more important for him to coax his wife now, so he was not in the mood to argue with Kanwu. He only, accidentally, used his tail to sweep him when he passed by him, directly sweeping him from the back of the group to the wall at the side. With a dull thud, that fellow did not even make a sound as he had the guts to do so. When Gu Mengmeng heard the noise and turned around, she saw Kanwu stumbling back to the team. She turned to look at Elvis, who shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he was innocent. The moment she exited the cave, Gu Mengmeng saw Leah standing at a distance. It had only been a few days since she last saw him, but he had lost a lot of weight, looking decadent and weathered. That pair of long and narrow eyes seemed to contain 1,000 years of hope, and the moment he saw Gu Mengmeng, they gushed out and drowned her. Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip and made up her mind to turn her head to the side. She walked past Leah but chose to ignore him. If you love, please love deeply. If you abandon, please be thorough. Don't be ambiguous, hurting others and yourself. Gu Mengmeng repeated this sentence in her heart, telling herself that as long as she was more ruthless, Leah might just give up and leave after accumulating enough disappointment with her. That way maybe. Chapter 477. Leah grabbed Gu Mengmeng's arm, but did not pull her into his arms. He just maintained a back-to-back position. He did not dare to turn back, afraid that he would personally witness her rejection. She did not dare to turn back, afraid that she would not be able to withstand his pleading. Lee's voice was a little dry, with a hint of indifference in his hoarse voice. "Who will go to the platform of the deity's punishment?" Gu Mengmeng wanted to ask, What are you going to the platform of the deity's punishment for? But the words were stuck in her throat, turning into a faint "oh." Leah used all his strength to slowly loosen his grip. He let go, but she hesitated. Humans were indeed selfish and greedy. Leah was right, she did enjoy his attentive care and fawning by her side. Smiling bitterly, Gu Mengmeng told herself that since she could not afford it, then she would set him free. Gu Mengmeng pulled her hand out and left resolutely. Only after she had walked a distance away did Leah dare to turn around. Leaning against the tree trunk, he slowly sat on the ground and clutched his chest tightly. His gaze was fixated in the direction where Gu Mengmeng had disappeared to. His left hand, which was holding onto her wrist, maintained the posture when she pulled away. He said, "In this lifetime, I only made that one mistake, but I never had the chance to be forgiven?" Gu Mengmeng brought her sons to the stream and wanted to jump in to help them bathe, but was stopped by Elvis. Elvis called out and Jiaoyu and Hutta jumped into the stream with a plop. Qi Xian hesitated for a moment, but after being glared at by Elvis, he could only jump in. Only Kanwu, who was covered in mud, stood by the shore, refusing to go down. He was covered in mud and felt uncomfortable. But he just did not want to listen to Elvis. The more he asked them to go down, the more he refused to go down. Since Mother was here, what could he do? Kanwa felt a pain in his buttocks, and when he regained his senses, he had already fallen into the stream in a free fall. He tried to struggle with Elvis, but was stopped by Hutta. Hutta used the little wolf's language to say, "Can't you see that Mother is upset? Father is thinking of ways to comfort Mother, don't cause trouble." Kanwa then realized that Mother's expression was not quite right. It cried out twice, but failed to attract its mother's attention. Only then did it reluctantly soak in the water and begin to clear its body. He thought to himself, "I won't argue with you for my mother's sake. Otherwise, I won't wash my body of mud. I'll just stand in front of my mother like this and see how you explain it to her." Elvis knew what that fellow was thinking and could not be bothered with him. He thought to himself, "If it wasn't because your mother is in a bad mood now and I'm worried that you'll get in the way while I'm coaxing my wife, do you think I'll be willing to care whether you bathe or not? It's best if you're dirty to death. When my wife hates you, I'll immediately kick you out." The father and son, who hated each other, didn't give each other any face, but for the sake of a woman who was very important to them, they temporarily reached a tacit understanding not to cause trouble for each other. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and let her sit in his arms. He held her hand gently and asked, "Are you really not going to forgive Leah?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "He is not the one at fault, he does not need my forgiveness." Elvis, "Not him?" Gu Mengmeng, "Yes, not him, it's me." Elvis sighed and asked, "Because you can't mate with him?" Gu Mengmeng nodded. Elvis, "Xiao Meng, what exactly are you worried about? If it's because of me." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and smiled bitterly, "It's not because of you, it's because I can't get over the hurdle in my heart." Aside from the topic, calm down, everyone calm down. Didn't I give you all the procedures previously? It's almost done. The darkness before dawn is the darkest. Chapter 478. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms and quietly watched her 4 sons bathe in the water. However, her thoughts drifted back to a long time ago. It was also in this stream that a vixen hugged her and confessed to her, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that from today onwards, only you will be my deity, my life, my everything." Oh no! Gu Mengmeng snapped back to her senses. Gu Mengmeng looked over and saw Oakley. Gu Mengmeng had not seen him for a long time and had almost forgotten about him. "What is it? Speak slowly." Oakley's character was similar to Lee's. He would not usually be this anxious, but the more anxious he was, the more he had to speak slowly. Otherwise, he would definitely be stuck and unable to speak. Oakley was so anxious that he kept stomping his feet. He paced 2 to 3 rounds on the spot before catching his breath. Leah has gone up the platform of the deity's punishment and wants to burn himself to apologize to the beast deity. Gu Mengmeng was stunned, and before she could think, she had already started running towards the platform of the deity's punishment. Elvis transformed into a beast and grabbed onto Gu Mingming's dress with his mouth, flinging her onto his back. Gu Mingming did not struggle. In terms of speed, there was no way she could beat Elvis. In just a few breaths' time, Elvis had already reached the bottom of the platform of the deity's punishment. His fourth-level beast's full speed was comparable to a high-speed rail, and his instantaneous burst of speed showed that he was also very worried about Leah. When Gu Mingming arrived, she saw a small bonfire burning in front of Leah. Leah was adding firewood inside, as if he wanted to make the fire burn even bigger. Under the platform of the deity's punishment, there were a few people lying in a disorderly manner. At a glance, he saw Barit, Colin, and a few other familiar faces, but he couldn't recall their names. The injuries on their bodies were not fatal, but they were enough to prevent them from standing up and obstructing him. "Leah, what are you doing?" Gu Mingming shouted as she walked towards the platform of the deity's punishment. Lee's body stiffened, but he did not turn back. He only said quietly, "You don't even want me anymore. Why are you still here?" Gu Mingming said, "You don't want to live because of a woman? What about your ambition when you founded Saint Nazir? Don't want it anymore? Where is your determination to defend Saint Nazir? You don't want it anymore? What about vengeance against those who have wronged you? You gave up too?" Lee's hand paused in the act of adding more firewood, but he still threw a piece of firewood into the small fire pit. "If destroying these things you mentioned can allow me to go back in time and return to the day when Elvis and I dueled, then I am willing to slaughter the entire Saint Nazir with my own hands and go back to that time. I would rather let Elvis kill me than let go of your hand at that time and cause today's irreversible situation." Leah glanced sideways at Gu Mingming. That pair of long and narrow eyes no longer had any trace of affection, only emptiness and despair was left. He said, "What a pity, we can't go back, isn't it? You will never forgive me. No matter what I do, how I beg, how I repent, you will never give me another chance. I don't even dare to dream of mating anymore. I just want to be a pet beast that can hug you, but you still want to push me far away. Meng Meng, if you really don't even have a place for me by your side, then don't save me. In a world without you, living is the greatest torture." Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly and her lips turned pale. Principles or Leah, which was more important? The main point of all these was that she could not break through her own principles. She was greedy but refused to admit it. Chapter 479. Leah was taken aback and smiled sadly. "All I want is to have a place by your side, to be able to protect you. That's enough." Gu Mingming turned around and looked at Elvis. "Hubby, I want to keep a vixen at home, can I? I promise I won't mate with him. I promise that my love for you will not diminish. Can you accept having one more member in the family?" Elvis went forward and hugged Gu Mingming lightly. "I've accepted him long ago. Have you forgotten?" Gu Mingming pounced into Elvis's arms and mumbled softly, "Hubby, I'm sorry, I'm still a fickle woman." "Xiaomeng, you're not." Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, "There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time. Do you still remember what Leah had said to you outside the cave? He said he can die protecting you on the battlefield, but he doesn't want to see you get hurt before he dies. My thoughts are the same. I can fight for you, I can die for you, but I don't want you to have no one to protect you after I die." Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and said, "If I accept Leah as a member of our family, it will relieve you of your worries and allow you to die without any qualms when you meet with danger. Then I don't want him, I want you." Elvis was taken aback and said, "I didn't mean that, I just wanted to say, it's a good thing to have one more person in the family to take care of you." Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly and didn't say a word, just staring at Elvis. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and sighed, "I won't die so easily, you know how much I can't bear to leave you. Don't worry, don't be afraid, I won't give up the position of the first partner to anyone." Gu Mingming said, "You promise?" Elvis said, "I swear to the beast deity, I will never leave you." Gu Mingming was satisfied and lowered her head. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and turned her around, then carried her up the platform of the deity's punishment. He pushed her lightly and said, "Go, if you don't go, Leah will really jump into the fire." Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Elvis, full of guilt. But she still took a small step forward and extended her hand towards Leah. Leah, I'm here to bring you home. Lee's expression was blank, as if he could not believe his own ears. You forgive me? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, Between us, you are not the one at fault. I was the one who couldn't adapt to the rules here. I tortured myself, you and Elvis. My greatest concession is to let you become a member of my family, to give you love and care, to worship and rely on you, but I will not mate with you, and I will not give birth to any offspring for you. The title of beast pet may become a lifetime of shame for you. Even so, are you still willing to stay with a selfish female like me? Leah smiled. He staggered up and pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms. Feeling his heart beating again after death, he said, I told you before, your selfishness is what I wished for the most. Gu Mengmeng's eyes were wide open. For the first time since the breakup, Gu Mengmeng returned Lee's hug. She was so careful and conflicted. But when her hands really touched him, she suddenly felt at ease. She accepted Leah, but the sky did not fall. Let's go home, Daddy Leah. As you wish. Digression, are you happy? Aren't you going to say that you love me? Chapter 480. Back in the cave, Leah was still unwilling to let go of Gu Mengmeng's hand. These few days, he had been suffering terribly. He had been living in the fear of being heartbroken. The despair of losing her the last time he was heartbroken was constantly enveloping him. Every little bit of sweetness he had after staying in the cave during winter had been magnified multiple times, becoming an accomplice to torment him. The loneliness after tasting warmth was the most bitter. Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's hand on her left and Lee's right. She stood at the entrance of the cave but could not return home. The cave was only so big, 3 people could not fit in side by side. Why don't the 2 of you go in hand? Gu Mengmeng asked sincerely. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances. They each raised the hand that was not holding Gu Mengmeng's hand and punched at the 2 sides of the cave entrance. Yeah, Erlai's construction team, specializing in expanding all kinds of cave entrances. 1 punch to settle it, providing convenient services for your family of 3. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly as she maintained the posture of the 3 of them holding hands into the cave. But honestly speaking, it felt weird. Felt like Daddy and Mummy were bringing you to the supermarket. Damn it, Gu Mengmeng once again felt the malice from the height. Gu Mengmeng looked at the cave and felt that something was missing. After thinking for a long time, she was suddenly shocked. She turned to Elvis and asked, Where are Hutta and the rest? Elvis was also taken aback and said, They seem to be still soaking in the water. Gu Mengmeng glared at him and Elvis immediately said, Don't be angry, don't be angry. I will go get the 4 of them now. With that, Elvis hurriedly ran out of the cave. After Elvis left, there was only Gu Mengmeng and Leah left in the cave. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Gu Mengmeng pulled her hand away from Lee's grasp. Not only did Leah not let go, he even wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and asked, Are you regretting taking me in? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, I never really let you go. I was greedy on one side, but I did not dare to admit it at the same time. That's why I ended up like this today. If we had known this would happen, we might as well have admitted our selfishness and greed from the very beginning. Whoever wants to scold us can scold us all they want. At least the 3 of us wouldn't have to suffer so much. Leah placed Gu Mengmeng on the bed and let her sit properly. He laid on his side and used Gu Mengmeng's thighs as a pillow. His furry big tail brushed against Gu Mengmeng's waist. He said, I know you're lying to me, but I still feel happy after hearing it. Mengmeng, this time, lie to me for the rest of my life, all right? Gu Mengmeng gently caressed Lee's hair. The texture of his silver-white hair was really good, as smooth as silk. Gu Mengmeng twirled a strand of hair around her fingertip and said, When did I lie to you? I'm obviously telling the truth, okay? Leah said, If you really have me in your heart, why would you be so cruel to me? Once I confirmed that you and Elvis had mated, I immediately came back to look for you. I knew that you were angry at my scheming, so you would definitely be punished, but I didn't expect that you would directly cut me off from your heart. You clearly knew that the matter between Nina and me was fake, yet you kept saying that I was someone else's male, which made my heart ache. Gu Mengmeng poked Li's head and said, "Why didn't you mention that when you were poking me at Nina's house? I was so upset that I didn't want to live, but I didn't see you feeling sorry for me." Chapter 481. Then why did you stop me from hitting Nina? Gu Mengmeng was still very angry when she thought of this. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng with an aggrieved look and said, "I was afraid that you would dirty your hands and I was worried that your hands would hurt." Gu Mengmeng replied, "That would definitely not hurt as much as you pinching my wrist." Leah looked down and said, "I also know that you would definitely feel a lot of pain when I pinched your wrist. That is my punishment to myself. When you are in pain, I am in even more pain." With that, Leah placed Gu Mengmeng's little hand on his chest and said, "Here, it hurts 1,000 times more." Gu Mengmeng looked into Li's eyes. The deep love had never faded and it was even more intense than before. "You were the one who abandoned me, but now you're saying it as if I let you down." Gu Mengmeng mumbled unhappily. Leah said, "If you weren't uncomfortable and were willing to accept both me and Elvis as your partners, I wouldn't have to do so many things." Gu Mengmeng said, "Now it's my fault?" Leah flipped over and sat up, hugging Gu Mengmeng from his body. He felt the complete feeling of using her body heat to fill his embrace and said, "It's not considered letting me down, but you owe me happiness. At that time, you said that I was your ex-boyfriend and asked me to maintain my demeanor and not disturb your life. Heartless Gu Mengmeng, do you know that your heartless words almost caused me to suffocate and die in front of you? You even said that you don't want things that have been touched by others." Leah kissed the side of Gu Mengmeng's face and whispered in her ear with a deep and husky voice, "Do you want to check if it has been touched before?" Gu Mengmeng's hair stood up and she had goosebumps all over her body. She said defensively, "We agreed not to mate." But Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng with a "your thoughts are so dirty" expression and said, "Who said I want to mate? I just want you to check if your beast pet is clean." "No need to check. I believe you." Gu Mengmeng blushed and wanted to retract her hand. But Leah did not give in. He placed his large hand over Gu Mengmeng's small hand, then slowly moved down from his chest. He removed his beast skin dress and said, "It's better to check clearly, in case you use words like someone else's male, or something that someone else has touched, to poke my sore spot in the future." Gu Mengmeng knew that she should not look at indecent things, but she could not shift her eyes away. Li's body was a size smaller than Elvis's. He looked more enchanting and otherworldly, but his flirtatious aura was so fresh and refined. The lines of his muscles were smooth, without a trace of excess fat or extra muscle. His whole body looked very comfortable. Gu Mengmeng really did not have the courage to explore some special parts. She turned her face to the side and said, "Hurry and wear your beast skin dress properly, or else I will fall out with you." But Leah did not care. He exerted force in his arms and Gu Mengmeng fell into his arms. Leah laid on his back and Gu Mengmeng laid on his chest like a little puppy. She propped her hands up slightly and looked at Leah, who was smiling ambiguously. His thin red lips opened slightly and his voice was as smooth as a seductive love song. "Pleasing your own female is every male's priority. As a beast pet, I should spare no effort, shouldn't I? Or, after you enjoyed Elvis, my body is no longer enough?" Chapter 482. Leah tugged on Gu Mengmeng's collar lightly, his slender and bony fingers gently caressed Elvis's mark. "The evidence is right here. Do you still want to deny it?" Gu Mengmeng tugged at her own collar. "Enjoy my ass. Hurry and wear your beast skin dress properly, or I'm leaving." Leah flipped over, pressing Gu Mengmeng on top of him, looking down at her blushing face, kissing her lightly. "So good, you still blush because of me. Whoever stands naked in front of me, I will blush." Gu Mengmeng roared without much confidence. Leah was a little disappointed, rubbing his chin. Oriton also transformed in front of you previously, but I didn't see you blush. Gu Mingming said, he didn't press down on me. Li's large tail covered the two of them like a blanket. He leaned down and kissed the side of her face, murmuring softly, guess why Elvis went out? Gu Mingming, to find our sons. Leah suddenly laughed. When we were not at home, those 4 little rascals ran around the tribe. Which part of us are not familiar with each other? Using him to find? Gu Mingming was taken aback, not saying a word. Leah, he's making space for us. He wants me to serve you properly. Gu Mingming slapped the side of the bed. I said I won't mate. Leah flipped over and laid on his side beside Gu Mingming, his furry tail covering the important parts. He patted Gu Mingming's arm lightly with his slender hands and pinched her soft little flesh. I know. To be able to hug you like this, kiss you, talk to you properly and tell you how much I love you, without you avoiding me, rejecting me or getting angry. I'm already very happy and very satisfied. Gu Mingming's expression changed. Gu Mingming glanced sideways at Leah, asking, you're not angry? Letting you become a beast pet, but not willing to mate with you. Leah pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to his lips, kissing it. No matter what you do to me, I won't be angry. Gu Mingming admitted that she was selfish. And Li's tolerance and even indulgence made her feel sweet. She burrowed deeper into Li's arms and pressed her forehead against his chest. You're still saying you won't be angry? Who was the one who was so angry that he wanted to turn himself into a barbecue? Leah rubbed Gu Mingming's little head gently, enjoying the fact that she was taking the initiative to approach him. He said gently, I'm not angry, I just want to know, how much do I have to do for you to ignore me out of heartache? Gu Mingming looked up and asked, what if I didn't come? Leah lowered his head and kissed her eyes. That proves that you really don't want me anymore. Then death is a release for me. Gu Mingming hugged Li's waist and pressed her face against his chest. You promised me that you would never do anything to hurt yourself. Leah hugged Gu Mingming tightly and said, that's because your heart will ache if I hurt myself. Gu Mingming said, my heart will always ache, so you are not allowed to do such things again. Leah, Mingming, I really belong to you, right? Gu Mingming looked up at Leah, smiling as she nodded her head. Leah, in my life, I have never really owned anything, and I have never been owned by anyone. Ming, thank you for letting me become yours. Gu Mingming, silly. Chapter 483. The next night, Saint Nazir held a grand bonfire party. After Gu Mingming explained the plan, Leah understood and went to arrange it. Gu Mingming was playing rattan ball with her 4 sons not far from the venue. She was so crazy that her forehead was covered in sweat, but she was enjoying it. After being pounced on by Kanwu again, Elvis was finally infuriated. He came up and flung Kanwu far away, then carried Gu Mingming with one hand. Looking at Kanwu, who was spinning in midair and landing perfectly without any embarrassment, Elvis sneered, if you pounce on my wife on the ground again, I will strangle you to death. Gu Mingming patted the dirt off her body. It's fine, the kids are still young and don't know how to control their strength. He didn't do it on purpose, don't be angry. Elvis pointed at Kanwu. He is already at the height of your thigh. If he keeps pouncing on you, you will get hurt. Gu Mingming did not realize it if Elvis did not mention it. Now that he mentioned it, she took a closer look at her 4 sons. Although the other 3 were not as exaggerated as Kanwu, they were at least the size of an adult husky. What to do? So proud. My sons are tall, Gu Mingming laughed. My babies, what did your Aunt Sandy feed you when I was not at home? How did you grow so well? Ow, ow, ow. The 4 little fellows fought to be the first to answer. Then, Gu Mingming still did not understand. Turning her head, Gu Mingming looked at Elvis, waiting for him to translate. But Elvis sneered. Born as a wolf, but eating female food and being fed by humans. How dare you say that? The little fellows were obviously not happy with Elvis's words and were arguing with him. Gu Mingming immediately tried to smooth things over. What did Sandy feed them? Elvis laughed in disdain. Bode and Colin were afraid that your sons would be wronged, so they prepared food according to Sandy's. In the end, Sandy was afraid that they would not have enough to eat, so she asked Colin and the rest to carry them and feed them one more time every day. Gu Mengmeng laughed. It seems like it's true that a mother-in-law dotes on her son-in-law. Elvis raised his brow. You really want the four of them to mate with Sandy's children? Gu Mengmeng nodded. Yeah, what? You object? Elvis shook his head. Why would I object to what you said? It's just that Sandy has been an adult for a long time now, but her stomach hasn't responded. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis and said with a serious expression, Don't expose others' shortcomings. If Sandy hears this, she will be sad. Elvis did not continue speaking. Seeing Leah walking back, he placed Gu Mengmeng on the ground. The moment Gu Mengmeng sat on the ground, the 4 meat buns rushed over and gathered around her. Leah and Elvis had no choice. They did not dare to throw the 4 little ones out in front of Gu Mengmeng, so they could only pretend to be magnanimous and sit at the periphery, using their tails to protect Gu Mengmeng, preventing the 4 little ones from hurting her. As Gu Mengmeng played with her 4 sons, she said to Leah, I want to sit next to Sandy and Mandy at the night campfire later. Leah frowned. What about Elvis and me? Chapter 484. The 2 males looked at each other and sighed speechlessly. A few days ago when Gu Mengmeng was angry, Leah and Elvis were left out in the cold. If not for Sandy putting in a good word for them, one of them would probably still be lying at the door and the other outside the yard. Accept your fate, Gu Mengmeng would always ignore them when Sandy was around. Just as she was thinking about it, she saw Colin and Bode walking towards them, one on the left and one on the right. Sandy's face was obviously filled with anger. She sat down in front of Gu Mengmeng, huffing and puffing without saying a word, obviously infuriated. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Colin and Bode, asking, How did the 2 of you anger my little Sandy baby? Colin hurriedly waved his hands, saying, Not me, not me. Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze to Bode, who also hurriedly shook his head, saying, Not me either, not me either. Gu Mengmeng smiled. The 2 of you wouldn't dare to anger my little Sandy baby. With that, Gu Mengmeng held Sandy's little hand, saying, Although you look very beautiful when you are angry, I like you more when you are happy. Tell me, who angered you? Sandy could never stay angry with Gu Mengmeng for long, so upon hearing her words, she could not help but feel a little shy, saying, You are always spouting nonsense, always coaxing me, not a single word of truth. Gu Mengmeng widened her beautiful eyes, pointing to the sky and swore, If I lie to you, may the heavens strike me with lightning. Sandy went forward to cover Gu Mengmeng's mouth, saying, Don't swear so recklessly, what if it comes true? Gu Mengmeng retracted her finger and held Sandy's little hand. She pulled her hand away from her mouth and held it in her hand. She nudged Sandy's shoulder lightly and said, Are you worried that I will be struck by lightning? Your heart is aching? Sandy was finally tickled by Gu Mengmeng's nonchalant look. She poked Gu Mengmeng's brows in exasperation, saying, The children are watching, you are also not being serious. Gu Mengmeng saw that Sandy's mood had improved, so she stopped fooling around, saying, Tell me, who exactly angered you? Look at how angry you were just now, you were about to emit smoke. Sandy was still angry at the mention of this matter. It's that Ellie. Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes. Ellie? That snake half-beast female? Sandy nodded and said with righteous indignation, She came to find me today because we're both females of the same tribe and we're both half-beasts. She felt inferior in front of others, so it was normal for her to come to me. So, I kindly invited her to have some food with us and invited her to join the bonfire party in the evening. In the end, she actually. Sandy glared fiercely at Colin. Colin innocently lowered his head and didn't say anything. Gu Mengmeng looked at his stance and asked, What? Does she fancy Colin? Colin hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, no. She didn't like me. She said that I had pursued you before. Gu Mengmeng gave him a look of understanding and said, He went to your place to sow discord, right? Sandy nodded angrily and said, His words are so weird, it makes me angry. Gu Mengmeng patted the back of Sandy's hand and said, "What did he say? Let me hear it too." Chapter 485. Gu Mengmeng almost burst out laughing. She held Sandy's hand and asked, "Then what did you say?" Sandy put her hands on her waist and said, "I said, if Gu Mengmeng really wants a bear beast as a beast pet, I will be Gu Mengmeng's beast pet without Colin." Gu Mengmeng laughed. "Ha! That's right. Which bear can be as cute and beautiful as my little Sandy? If I really want to raise a bear as a beast pet, I will definitely raise you." The four males shuddered. Leah gently tugged at the corner of Gu Mengmeng's shirt and said, "Isn't it good to raise foxes? Bears don't have tails." Sandy was indignant upon hearing that. She turned around and transformed into her original form, revealing her furry little tail and shaking it twice. Then, she transformed back into her human form and said, "Who said bears don't have tails? They do." Gu Mengmeng held onto Sandy's arm and straightened her neck to look at Leah, saying, "That's right, who said our Sandy doesn't have a tail? I saw it the last time. It was a very cute little fur ball, right, Sandy?" Sandy nodded and said, "Yes, it was very cute." Leah felt a strong sense of crisis and despair. Even though she was throwing a tantrum, Gu Mengmeng still held onto Sandy's arm and asked, "Sandy, you don't believe what she said, right?" Sandy said, "I am not stupid. I saw Colin wooing you back then. I am not blind. Do I need an outsider like her to tell me? Moreover, if you like Colin, you should have accepted him back then. Why would you matchmake us? That Ellie has a bad heart. She wants me to quarrel with you and then make you sad. I will not fall for her trick." Gu Mengmeng hugged Sandy and swayed, saying, "Yeah, I know my Sandy is the best. She will not be provoked by others. But that Ellie is not simple. She is different from Nina in the past. You better stay away from her, understand?" Sandy tilted her head and asked, "What's different? Aren't they both bitches?" Yes, this was what Gu Mengmeng used to scold Nina, but seeing how Sandy did not even know what **tsh meant and spat out the word innocently, Gu Mengmeng still felt as if she had led the country's flower astray. She felt guilty as if she was luring a child to steal fast food noodles. Laughing twice, he said, "There are many kinds of sluts. Nina was obviously **ts, so he could just beat her back. But he had to be on guard against Ellie, who secretly hurt people. If she can tell you that Colin likes me today, she might tell you that I'm having an affair with Bode tomorrow." Sandy frowned and turned to look at Bode. Bode's legs were trembling. Under the gaze of the chief, witch doctor and Sandy, he stammered, "I'm innocent with the Lord Messenger. I didn't. Gu Mengmeng laughed and said, "Yes, of course there's nothing between me and Bode. But the person who started the rumor. It doesn't have to be me and Bode, it could be Maya and Bode. Mandy and Bode, Ellie herself and Bode, or Colin and Bode." The way Sandy looked at Bode was getting stranger and stranger. Bode had a feeling that he could not explain himself. He suddenly looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Lord Messenger, did I, accidentally offend you?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "You're not that stupid." Chapter 486. Colin also waved his hand seriously and said, I can't either. Gu Mengmeng placed both her hands on her knees and looked at Bode with a stiff neck. She asked, "I heard that you shared with Elvis how to admit your mistakes that day?" Bode thought for a while and said, "Yes. The mighty tribe leader said he made you angry and Sandy was coaxing you, so I taught him how to admit his mistakes." Gu Mengmeng asked again, "Do you usually apologize to Sandy like this at home?" Bode nodded his head seriously and said, "Not only me, males usually apologize like this at home." Gu Mengmeng believed that Bode would not dare to lie to her and his gaze was too sincere. Since it was unintentional, Gu Mengmeng did not pursue the matter any further. She waved her hands and said, "Forget it, I will not pursue this matter anymore." Bode heaved a long sigh of relief before standing up to Gu Mengmeng and Sandy. Seeing that Sandy was no longer that angry after Gu Mengmeng's tantrum, he could not help but pat Colin's shoulder and said, "Luckily it was you who thought of this idea, or else I really don't know what to do. Colin scratched his head and said, as long as they are together, they will not be angry. Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy and Sandy looked back at Gu Mengmeng. Both of them smiled at the same time. Leah was a little jealous as he swayed his large tail and said, that's why I said, the few of you should thank Mengmeng for not being a male. Bode said, yes, Colin, quickly thank the great messenger. Colin was stunned and could not react in time. Bode said, quickly thank the great messenger for not being a male. Or else, who among the 9 males in our family would be able to snatch her away? Colin suddenly understood and bowed to Gu Mengmeng and said, great messenger, I thank you for not being a male. Gu Mengmeng patted Leah and said, how many times do you want to play this joke? Didn't Bode already thank you the previous time? Leah, however, turned his head to look at Sandy in jealousy and said, Sandy, you should also thank yourself for not being a male. Sandy pointed at her own nose and looked at Leah with a face full of question marks. Leah said, if you are a male and Mengmeng likes you so much, I will definitely go crazy from jealousy and kill you. Sandy's body trembled, and her face turned pale. And me? Elvis's voice was cold as he squeezed his wrist, his bones cracking. Sandy pounced into Gu Mengmeng's arms and hugged her tightly. Sobs. Tribe leader and witch doctor are so scary. Gu Mengmeng, you better abandon them and live with me. Elvis and Lee's faces froze. They gritted their teeth. They really wanted to strangle her to death. Gu Mengmeng turned around and glanced at her husky and Samoyed, saying, if you continue to show off, both of you will have to sleep outside the cave tonight. Leah threw himself into Gu Mengmeng's arms, wrapping his furry big tail around Gu Mengmeng's waist. His long and narrow eyes were filled with affection as he pointed at Elvis and said, it's all your fault. Why did you scare Sandy for no reason? Look, you've angered Mengmeng, aren't you going to apologize? Elvis's face darkened. He looked at this scapegoat and clenched his teeth. In the end, he still lowered his head and said, I was wrong. Gu Mengmeng did not harp on this matter anymore. She just held Sandy's little hand and asked, other than Ellie, what do you think of the other new females in the tribe? Sandy thought for a while and said, they're all very good. Complete females are originally very rare. It's already not bad for a tribe to have 1 or 2. So many of them came to St. Nazir at once. It makes me happy looking at them. Aside from the topic, alright, my babies, are you happy reading today's update? I love it when you guys are smiling the most. If Susu's text can make you guys smile, please leave a comment and let me know because this will make me very, very happy. Chapter 487. Gu Mengmeng said, they used to be the first beauties of the tribe, so it's inevitable that they would be a little arrogant. Did any of them bully you and Maya just because they are complete females? Sandy shook her head and said, Sigh, it's strange. They are all complete females, but their personalities are all better than the other. Especially that first beauty that you personally chose, she would smile at me every time she sees me, and speak to me in an amiable manner. Yeah, it's just a little weird, they seem to be imitating you. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback, and suddenly understood. As the messenger of the beast deity, in their eyes, she was probably like a modern little girl who was infatuated with an idol? Give me a XX nose and a XXX chin. In the beast world, there was no such thing as a nose and chin for sale, so she could only get a similar temperament? Alright, if the females here could learn from her, at least it would be pleasant to interact with them. Just that, how long could they last? Speaking of Mandy, Gu Mengmeng suddenly recalled something. She hurriedly took out a bamboo cup from her pocket and handed it to Sandy, saying, Here, this is for you. Sandy received the cup happily and smiled, saying, Isn't this the cup you gave to the first beauty? I have one too? Gu Mengmeng hooked Sandy's little face and said, In my eyes, you are the first beauty, no one can be compared to you. Before Gu Mengmeng could finish her sentence, she felt a tightness around her waist and was carried up by Leah. Without any communication, he and Elvis sandwiched her in the middle and walked towards the main venue of the night campfire party. As they walked, they said, The decorations at the venue are almost done, You have to come over and see where to place that thing from the previous time. Colin also carried Sandy up in a tacit understanding and walked back with Bode. He said, "Look, the great messenger is so busy, you can't keep causing trouble for her. Let's go home first and find a place to place this cup. If not, it'll be useless even if you cry if it gets lost later." The two females were forcefully separated, and when they regained their senses, one was already at the venue and the other in the cave. Gu Mingming knew that these two fellows were jealous, blaming her for chatting endlessly the moment she saw Sandy and giving them the cold shoulder. But which woman wasn't the same? Bosom friends always have endless topics to talk about. Gu Mingming glanced at the thing Leah was talking about and smiled. "This is called a drum. It's a musical instrument from my place. When I used to work at the amusement park, I learned how to make it from the old man who sold souvenirs. However, my skill was not good, and it was far worse than the old man's. This one is barely usable." Leah took the wooden mallet that Gu Mengmeng had made previously and knocked on the drum. He smiled and said, "Let's perform that song today. It makes one's blood boil and I feel that it suits today's atmosphere very well." Gu Mengmeng took over the drumstick and played with it in her hands. "Previously, it was to help Sandy and Colin to liven up the atmosphere that I risked my voice. Today, since it's the welcoming ceremony, let's throw caution to the wind." Leah smiled and nodded before asking again, "Then, what should I sing for the second song?" Gu Mengmeng said, "Colin has already mated with Sandy, how could there be a second one? Just sing a song to warm up the place." Chapter 488. Gu Mengmeng frowned and asked, "Singing A Little Happiness again? I'm already traumatized." Leah shook his head and said, "You're not allowed to sing that song anymore." Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng's waist and said, "Just one song will do, don't tire yourself out." Leah did not insist and only said, "Then who's going to help you carry the drum? Me or Elvis?" Gu Mengmeng felt the increasing pressure from both sides. This was the start of internal strife? Did they have to fight for this kind of physical labor? For the sake of family harmony, Gu Mengmeng said, "Both of you help me carry the drum and be more stable, all right?" Elvis and Leah nodded and did not say a word. At sunset, half the sky was dyed red by the setting sun. Gu Mengmeng asked someone to take a few large pieces of oil from the animal fats and smear them on the wood. Then she held a torch and lit it up lightly. The wooden pagoda that was as tall as a human was instantly ignited. Gu Mengmeng turned around and raised the torch high up. With a loud shout, with Elvis leading the way, all the males roared towards the sky. The scene was rather spectacular. Gu Mengmeng did not change her clothes because she did not intend to perform initially. She only agreed because she did not want to reject Leah. That cape and shorts had long been lost somewhere and could not be found, so Gu Mengmeng could only wear her normal clothes and stand on the drum. Although it was a little weird, fortunately, according to the standards of the beast world, which part of Gu Mengmeng was not weird. This set of clothes was not that important anymore. Elvis and Leah lifted the drum steadily and Gu Mengmeng sang and danced on the drum. Although her movements were obviously not as energetic as when she proposed to Colin, it was enough to shock those who had just joined Saint Nazaire and were witnessing such a performance for the first time. When Gu Mengmeng finally roared at the top of her lungs, the sound of tearing, Colin stood up and transformed into a bear. He pounded his chest with both hands and roared towards the sky. In just a breath's time, the original tribesmen of Saint Nazaire immediately understood and transformed into beasts, roaring together with Colin. The new tribesmen were influenced and also imitated them to transform into beasts, roaring towards the sky. This act later became a ritual in Saint Nazaire. Every year, when new members joined, Gu Mengmeng would sing Alien once, then the guardian messenger would lead the roar towards the sky. It was said that if we roared together, we would be a family. However, Gu Mengmeng was completely dumbfounded. What was the connection between screaming together and being a family from now on? Is there any scientific evidence? For example, after shouting, the DNA would be shattered, causing genetic recombination, and they would become a family? And the one who added fuel to the fire was Leah. The explanation he gave was, the roars of the males with all their might would be transmitted to the mighty beast deity who had come to listen to the messenger's song, letting the mighty beast deity know of their unity. From then on, they would become the tribe of the messenger that the mighty beast deity recognized. Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders and thought to herself, this is definitely bullshit, but everyone in the beast world believes it, believes it, believes it. Originally, Leah and Elvis were supposed to slowly place Gu Mengmeng down from the drum amidst the roars of the crowd before saying a few motivational words and starting the barbecue carnival. But when the roars stopped abruptly, there was a sudden change. Chapter 489. Leah. Gu Mengmeng reached out to grab Leah worriedly, but missed. The drum let out a loud thud and rolled to the side. Gu Mengmeng thought she would fall along with the drum, but the strength around her waist was like an iron clamp, locking her body in place. Looking up, she met Elvis's blue eyes. His brows were tightly furrowed, sweat pouring down like rain. He was clearly in pain, but he was forcing himself to hold on. Hubby, what's wrong? You guys, what's wrong with you guys? Gu Mengmeng had no idea what was going on. She could only hold onto Elvis's shoulders and stare into his eyes. Elvis was trembling all over, but he still controlled his strength and slowly placed Gu Mengmeng on the ground. Gritting his teeth, he squeezed out a sentence, "Don't run around, it's dangerous." Then, as if he was being pressed down by something, he crawled on the ground, unable to straighten his back no matter how hard he tried. The scene was so familiar. It looked exactly like the others who could not straighten their backs when Elvis released his beast pressure in the past. Gu Mengmeng stood up and looked around, only to realize that no one was standing apart from her. Many orcs were unable to maintain their human forms due to the pressure. There were a few strong ones, but they were all sprawled on the ground like Elvis, unable to get up. Ow 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 ow. The familiar cries made Gu Mengmeng's heart skip a beat. She looked towards the source. It was Hutta and the rest. The four little fellows had been tied up with tree vines and were being dragged out of the tribe. Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered with Elvis's instructions and chased after them. But her speed was too slow. By the time she reached the boundary of the tribe, Hutta and the rest could no longer be seen. Hutta. Gu Mengmeng yelled at the top of her lungs, "Qi Xian, Jiao, Zhenwu." None of the children responded to her. Gu Mengmeng plopped onto the ground, her head exploding with a bang. Bullshit messenger of the beast deity, how could she be so helpless at such a time? Gu Mengmeng knew that crying was useless, but she stood rooted to the ground, not knowing which direction to run in. "Come up." A familiar voice rang out. Gu Mengmeng looked up and saw Ian standing in front of her in his half-orc form. His wings were spread open and he was ready to fly at any time. His forehead was full of sweat and it was obvious that he was suffocating from the strong beast pressure. The bleeding wound on his leg was a ghastly sight, but Gu Mengmeng did not have time to care for him. She just jumped onto Ian's back. The moment Ian caught Gu Mengmeng, he transformed into an eagle owl and flapped his wings to fly into the sky. The higher he got, the more stable Ian became. He circled a few times before flying in a certain direction. At this height, Gu Mengmeng was basically in a state of being blind. She could not see anything, and other than the sound of the wind whistling beside her ears, she had no other senses to use. The only person she could rely on now was Ian, who was carrying her. After flying for 2 days, Gu Mengmeng and Ian arrived at Sauter. Standing at the entrance of Sauter, Gu Mengmeng was already in a daze. After 2 days of non-stop flying, both Ian and Gu Mengmeng were exhausted. Gu Mengmeng's only hope of saving her son was to hold on. "Are Hutta and the rest here?" Gu Mengmeng asked Ian. Ian shook his head and said in a weak voice, "After we took off, Hutta and the rest were nowhere to be found." Aside from the topic, "Yes, that's right, I was the one who caused trouble. I just could not bear to see Gu Mengmeng live a good life for 2 days and had to torment her. Aren't all mothers-in-law like this?" Chapter 490. Then why did you bring me here? Gu Mengmeng howled hysterically, her tears falling uncontrollably. Ian forced himself to hold onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, "If it's a wolf cub, you have to remain calm." Gu Mingming forced herself to hold back her tears and looked at Ian stubbornly. She kept telling herself in her heart that she had to be strong, she had to be strong, her sons were still waiting for her to save them. Ian took a deep breath and said, to be able to use beast pressure to suppress the entire Saint Nazir, he must be at least a 5th level orc, and not someone who just reached 5th level. He must be at least a 5th level middle stage or even a 5th level peak. Under such circumstances, even if you and I find a wolf cub, we won't be able to bring it away. You need reinforcements, 5th level, 5th level. Ian could not hold on any longer, and before he could finish his sentence, his body tilted and he landed beside Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming supported Ian and forced herself to calm down while repeating Ian's words. 5th level orc? I know a 5th level orc, reinforcements. Gu Mingming suddenly understood what Ian meant. Among all the 5th level orcs she knew, the only one who was willing to help her and had the ability was Cole. Gu Mingming used all her strength to support Ian up and walked towards Sauter with difficulty, step by step. Just when she reached the signboard, she saw Cole leading a group of people out to welcome them. Cole leads the Sauter tribesmen to welcome the mighty messenger. Cole stopped 3 steps away from Gu Mingming, one knee on the ground, and placed his right hand on his left chest to bow. Gu Mingming did not have the same confidence as Ian. When she left this place, she was not very friendly towards Cole. Even because of Leah, she was quite hostile towards Cole and spoke rudely. Back then, she bragged that she would never come to Sauter again and wanted to make Saint Nazir into a brand new messenger tribe blah 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 blah. Now, would he still be willing to help her? She bit her lower lip. For her sons, what was her face worth? Even if Cole said that he would only help if she lay on the ground and bark like a dog, she would only ask if he wanted her to learn from a Pekingese or a teddy bear. Cole, you help me. Gu Mingming's nose turned sour. She only managed to say these 5 words before her tears fell. Cole frowned and stood up to take Ian from Gu Mingming's body. He handed him over to the person beside him and said, "He looks like he is overly fatigued. Bring him to the stone house to settle down and let him recuperate." The people next to him didn't say anything and directly helped Ian to leave. Cole then turned around and gently wiped away the tears on Gu Mingming's face. He frowned and said, "Sauter is the messenger's tribe and we are your loyal subordinates. As long as it is your command, Cole will definitely execute it to the end." So, Lord Emissary, don't cry, you are our god. If you cry, we don't know what to do. Gu Mingming wiped away the tears on her face and looked at Cole with gratitude. Someone kidnapped my son, but I don't know who it is. He had used his beast pressure to suppress everyone in Saint Nazir, so Ian suspected that the other party was at least a 5th level or above orc. You're the only 5th level orc I know. Can you help me save my son? Chapter 491. In the next few days, Gu Mingming was arranged to be protected in the core building of Sauter. Only then did Gu Mingming know that Cole was not the only 5th level orc in Sauter, but there were 3 of them. The 3 of them took turns to guard Gu Mingming, in case the person who kidnapped the little wolves turned around to deal with Gu Mingming. And the remaining 2 mobilized all their connections to search for the whereabouts of the little wolves. It was the 3rd day. This was the 3rd day since Gu Mingming arrived. Cole dragged his tired body into Gu Mingming's room and exchanged information with the person on duty yesterday. The person on duty yesterday immediately went out to continue his search. Meanwhile, Cole walked to Gu Mingming and knelt on the ground. He frowned and said in a hoarse voice, "Great messenger, don't worry too much. No news, might be the best news." Gu Mingming looked up at Cole. No matter how indifferent she was to Cole, she had already noticed his sunken cheeks and dark circles under his eyes. "These 3 days, it's been hard on all of you." Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. She was the one who lost her son, but she could only sit in the house and wait for others to help her find her son. She could not help at all, and the only thing she could do was not to cause trouble. Cole smiled and said, "It's Sauter's honor to be able to serve the great messenger. It's also my honor that you can think of me when you are in trouble." Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze outside the window and asked calmly, "Where's Ian? Is he still not awake?" Cole replied, "He woke up this morning. Although he was very weak, he still flew away." Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Cole and asked, "Flew away?" Cole nodded and said, "He said he will return to St. Nazir first to inform Mighty Elvis and Mighty Leah about your situation, so that they won't be too worried if they can't find you." Gu Mengmeng nodded and felt a little melancholic. She ran away in a moment of panic because of her child. Elvis and Leah must have gone crazy from not being able to find her. She gently touched her collarbone. There was a black wolf mark there. She remembered Elvis saying that if she was in danger, she should hit this mark hard and he would rush over to save her. If she did not continue hammering, Elvis should at least know that she was safe. Cole maintained his kneeling position by Gu Mengmeng's feet. He looked up into her eyes and said, "Great Messenger, do you miss Great Elvis a lot?" Gu Mengmeng nodded. "They must be very worried that I suddenly disappeared." Cole smiled. "It seems like Lord Leah is also very important to you." Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "They are all my family, of course they are very important." Cole nodded and smiled. "I, as his elder brother, am happy for him that the great messenger thinks so highly of him. When the little mistress is found, please invite Sir Elvis and Sir Leah to stay in Sauder." After all, this place was relatively safer. We can prevent this incident from happening again. Gu Mengmeng met Cole's eyes and asked, "Is this your condition to help me find my son?" Chapter 492. Cole's suggestion did not receive any response from Gu Mengmeng, and after that day, Cole did not bring it up again. After another 3 days, when Cole staggered into Gu Mengmeng's room covered in blood, Gu Mengmeng jumped in fright. Cole staggered to Gu Mengmeng and knelt down on one knee. He held up a ball of blood with both hands and presented it to Gu Mengmeng. Lifting his blood-stained face, he smiled and said, Little master, I brought it back for you." A trickle of red flowed down his forehead, past his eyelashes and dripped onto the floor like a bloody tear. Gu Mengmeng's hands trembled as she took the lump of meat that was dyed red with blood from Cole's hands. Before she could see clearly what it was, Cole had already collapsed at Gu Mengmeng's feet. Gu Mengmeng was so frightened that she lost her head. The guards at the door hurried in and heaved a sigh of relief when they realized that there were no intruders. "Great Messenger, don't be afraid. We will carry Leader Cole out now." Gu Mengmeng looked at the blood-stained Cole and then at the ball of blood in her hands. "There's no need for that. Go get the witch doctor and boil some water." "Yes." The people at Sauder never questioned Gu Mengmeng's orders. They just carried them out. Not long after, witch Dr. Dylan rushed over. He checked on Gu Mengmeng the moment he entered the room. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with her, he heaved a sigh of relief and started to treat Cole. The person guarding at the door brought in boiled water and Gu Mengmeng started to carefully wash the blood lump in her arms. When basin after basin of clear water was replaced with blood water, the blood lump's original appearance was finally revealed. Qixuan? Even though he was quietly closing his eyes and not moving, Gu Mengmeng could clearly tell which son was in her arms. "Baby, I am mummy." Gu Mengmeng held back her tears and gently wiped Qixuan's body with a beast skin. She called out softly, "Good little Xian, don't scare mummy. Quickly open your eyes and look at mummy, all right?" No matter how she called out to him, Qixuan just lay there motionlessly. If not for the fact that his pulse was still beating, Gu Mengmeng would have suspected that her son was dead. She had carefully examined Qixuan's body. There were no obvious wounds, so the blood should not be Qixuan's, but Cole's. Gu Mengmeng carried Qixuan to Dylan and asked, "How is Cole?" Dylan shook his head and said, "I don't know what kind of enemy could actually injure clan leader Cole to this extent. 9 of his bones were broken, and there were countless external injuries. The worst part is the laceration on his abdomen. His internal organs can be seen, and the wound is black. It seems like he was poisoned." More than half of the blood on Cole's body had been washed away, but the wound was too big. The moment the old blood was washed away, new blood immediately flowed out. The beast's skin on the bed was already soaked. It would be strange if he didn't die from this. Gu Mengmeng asked Dylan, "Do you have an antidote?" Dylan looked at Cole's wound and deliberated for a moment before saying, "This poison is not very serious. With Leader Cole's abilities, he should be able to digest it himself. The main problem now is to stop the bleeding. If the bleeding can't be stopped, I'm afraid it's impossible to save him." Gu Mengmeng handed Qixin over to Dylan. "Help me check on him too. Cole's injury, let me try." Chapter 493. Gu Mengmeng did have a theoretical method. As for actual practice, she had only observed Leah suture Sandy's partner Adali's wound. But now that Leah was not around, if she did not do anything, Cole would be dead meat. Her hands trembling, Gu Mengmeng suppressed the fear in her heart and used one hand to stabilize the exposed flesh, while the other hand began to suture. Or perhaps she should be thankful that Cole was in a deep coma, or else Gu Mengmeng's method of suturing would probably kill Cole to death. Although the process was a little complicated, Gu Mengmeng finally managed to fix Cole's wound back in place. After asking for a clean boiled beast skin, Gu Mengmeng wrapped Cole up like a mummy. After settling Cole, Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at the dumbfounded Dylan and asked, "What's wrong?" Dylan suddenly snapped out of his trance and said, "The great messenger's medical skills are really miraculous and amazing." Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and said tiredly, "Save the flattery. How is my son?" Dylan replied, "Little Master did not suffer any external injuries. I have checked his internal organs and found nothing wrong with them. He is in a coma, it might be due to poison. But I am afraid we will only know what kind of poison it is when Leader Cole wakes up." Gu Mengmeng nodded and hugged Qixin in her arms. "Then don't go back to stay for this period of time. I remember that there is an empty room beside mine. You can stay here first so that it will be more convenient to deal with any emergencies." "Yes, sir," Dylan replied respectfully and left the room. Gu Mengmeng carried Qixin and sat by the window. She gently stroked his back and said, "Little Xian, be good, you must be safe, understand? You must get better quickly and then we can go find your other brothers. Mummy still wants to see you all grow up, evolve, mate and have babies." Cole remained unconscious for half a month. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Gu Mengmeng carrying Qixin in her arms and lying on the side of his bed. A pair of soft hands were placed on his wrists. "Great messenger?" Cole moved slightly. The sharp pain in his abdomen made him frown and cry out in a low voice. Gu Mengmeng woke up with a start. She sat up and stared straight at Cole. They stared at each other for a long time before returning to her senses. Gu Mengmeng reached out to touch Cole's forehead and realized that he no longer had a fever. She then heaved a sigh of relief and said, "You're finally awake." "Great messenger." Cole wanted to say something but was interrupted by Gu Mengmeng. "You've been in a coma for more than half a month. You've been relying on honey water to maintain your strength. You must be very weak now. Although I have a lot of questions to ask you, I'm not in a hurry. Lie down first. I'll get someone to bring you some food. We'll talk about the rest later." With that, Gu Mengmeng placed Qixin by Cole's bedside. "Help me look after my son." Cole smiled gently and said, "All right." Gu Mengmeng turned around and went out. As she called Dylan in to check on Cole's body, she instructed the guards outside to prepare some light food and fruits. Chapter 494. Gu Mengmeng prepared sweet potato porridge for Cole and added minced meat. She also cut a small plate of fruits and passed it to Cole. Cole wanted to take it from her but he could not even lift his hands. Gu Mengmeng scooped a spoonful of porridge and blew on it to warm it before bringing it to Cole's mouth. "You were injured because you saved my son. Give me a chance to take care of you. Consider it as compensation." Cole did not reject her and did not say a word. He just smiled and finished the food Gu Mengmeng brought to his mouth. This was not the first time a female fed him like this. But it was the first time he felt a warmth that nourished his entire body. After eating, Gu Mengmeng wanted to carry Qixin up from the bed but Cole held her wrist gently. He waved his hand and said, "You must be exhausted these few days, right? Let him sleep beside me for a while. You can also rest." Gu Mingming pushed Cole's hand away and carried Qixuan in her arms. "I will not feel at ease if my son is not in my arms. I will carry him." Cole did not stop her. He smiled and said, "This is the first time I have seen a female like you being so concerned about a male cub. He is clearly not the eldest son nor the youngest son." Gu Mingming knew the tradition of the Snow Fox tribe. The eldest son would inherit the position of tribe leader while the youngest son would inherit the authority of the witch doctor. So she only cared about these two sons. "The flesh that fell from my body is a treasure in every aspect. It has nothing to do with the ranking." Cole's gaze was a little complicated. She could not tell what he was thinking about. In the end, he just nodded silently. Then, without waiting for Gu Mingming to ask, he went straight to the point. "The one who kidnapped the little master is Ellie. The power behind her is the Snake King Valley." Gu Mingming frowned. "Ellie?" Cole replied, "My initial guess is that she wants to use the little master to lure you to the Snake King Valley. But the mighty one in the Snake King Valley has no interest in unifying the beast world. Otherwise, he would not have sealed himself off from the Snake King Valley for so many years. So, I suspect that all these are AI Lee's personal decisions and she was the one who wanted to lure you to the Snake King Valley." Gu Mingming thought about it. The last time Ellie surrendered to Sauter, Cole rejected Ellie because of her. At that time, Ellie gave her a piece of scale with simplified Chinese characters written on it. She could tell that it was a fake at one glance. At that time, Ellie mentioned that the real one was in the Snake King Valley. Therefore, her motive right from the start was to lure him to the Snake King Valley? It was just that she wasn't very curious about that information, so she didn't take the bait. So she changed her target to the wolf pups? What was his purpose? Everyone would have a motive for doing things. Deceiving her to go to the Snake King Valley, and then what? Moreover, since she had the ability to kidnap the wolf cub, why didn't she kidnap him directly? Wasn't it easier to deal with a female than to control 4 wolf pups? Gu Mingming really could not understand. Frowning, Gu Mingming looked up at Cole and said, "I want to make a trip to the Snake King Valley." Chapter 495. "But my son is there." Gu Mingming frowned. Cole forced himself to sit up and said, I'll go on your behalf." Gu Mingming looked at the blood seeping out of his abdomen and said, "You're already so injured, how can you go? Moreover, that's my son, there's no reason for you to take the risk for me." Cole did not loosen his grip on Gu Mingming's wrist, as if he was afraid that she would immediately run to the Snake King Valley. He frowned, but not because of his bleeding wound. "I'm a 5th-level beast, I'm already like this just by getting close to the borders of the Snake King Valley. What can you do even if you go?" Gu Mingming said, "I'm the messenger of the beast deity, maybe he will do me a favor?" Cole shook his head and said, "In the entire beast world, everyone is afraid of the title of messenger of the beast deity, except for him." Gu Mingming asked, "Why?" Cole said, "He's the son of the previous messenger of the beast deity and has lived for 1,000 years. Some people say that he has already transformed into a dragon and become a true god, an existence on par with the beast deity." Gu Mingming forced a smile and said, "Since he's colleagues with my beast father, then as a junior, if I visit him, I should," Cole said. "I can't let you take the risk. Believe me, I will definitely bring the other 3 little masters back. I will definitely, Gu Mingming supported Cole and said, "Lie down first, don't be agitated. I'm not a rash person, even if I have to save someone, I will make preparations before going." Hearing Gu Mingming's words, Cole finally relaxed a little and laid down slowly. He said, "Give me some time, I will recover as soon as possible." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and did not continue talking about going to the Snake King Valley. She just asked, "How did you save Qixuan? If you're not tired, can you tell me?" Cole nodded and his voice was very weak, as if the struggle just now had exhausted too much of his energy. But he did not want to disappoint Gu Mingming, so he forced himself to say, "In the beast world, Fifth-level beasts are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. A male beast that has reached this level cannot be a nobody. Those few days, the three of us took turns to go out and visit these fifth-level beasts one by one. In the end, I set my target on the Snake King Valley. Of course I didn't dare to offend Snake. My original target was a Group 5 Snake Beast Wabii in the Snake King Valley. But I had just reached the outskirts of the Snake King Valley when I met AI Li and saw the little masters who were tied up by her. Gu Mingming frowned and asked, "Alone?" Cole shook his head and said, "There were a few other males and some of them looked familiar. They should have come to Sauter together with you." Gu Mingming frowned. "Those who came to Sauter with her, weren't they from Saint Nazir?" Cole continued, "She has a very strong male with her. I can't tell where he came from and I don't know him either. All I know is that he's extremely powerful. Even if it can only barely fight him to a draw. If not for a tiger beast charging out at the critical moment, I might not have been able to bring little Master Qishen back." "Tiger beast?" Cole nodded and said, "In the chaos, I only heard some deity saying sorry to you." Gu Mingming remained silent for a moment before asking, "Official Su Xian?" Cole recalled for a moment and nodded. Gu Mingming asked, "And then? What happened to him?" Cole took a deep breath and said, "His chest was torn apart by AI Li and he died from eating his heart." Digression. Today's update was completed again. Chapter 496. Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly before slowly releasing them. She said, "Killing my tribesmen and hurting my son. I really became Mr. Dongwa for once and saved a frozen snake." Cole sighed and hesitated for a moment before placing his hand over Gu Mingming's. He said, "I will recover as soon as possible. Once I recover, I will bring my tribesmen to the Snake King Valley to find Snake. Even if he is the Snake King, he would not dare to go against the entire beast world." Gu Mingming retracted her hand and took a step back without anyone noticing. She said, "Didn't you say that it is very dangerous to offend the Snake King Valley?" Cole smiled and pretended not to notice Gu Mingming's distancing. He said, "For the great messenger, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not hesitate." Gu Mingming shook her head. "No need. You've already done enough for me. I can't drag you down any further. Recuperate well. Tomorrow, I will set off for Saint Nazir." Cole frowned. "No way, it is too dangerous." Gu Mingming smiled. "Don't forget, I am the messenger of the beast deity. I have the protection of the flame demons. If they are not willing to return my son to me, I will burn down the entire Snake King Valley." Cole said, "If Little Master is also in the Snake King Valley, he will be accidentally injured." Gu Mingming did not reply to Cole. She just turned around and said, "Helping me to this point is enough. Have a good rest." Gu Mingming pushed the door open and left. During this period of time, Cole was unconscious. She gave up her room for Cole to stay in while she stayed in a slightly further but quieter room. Looking at Gu Mingming's departing back view, Cole slowly sat up straight. He lowered his head to look at the wound on his abdomen. With a disappointed gaze, he muttered, "Is this degree still not enough?" A figure leaped in seductively. Her long and slender fingers gently brushed across Cole's abdomen. That cold touch was completely different from Gu Mingming's warmth. Cole frowned in annoyance and swatted away the slender hand that was rubbing his wound. He turned his gaze to the side and revealed an impatient expression. The hand that had been slapped away did not touch him again. Instead, it gently cupped its chin and moved its face closer to Cole's abdomen. It stuck out its tongue and licked the blood that seeped out from Cole's wound. A snake tail coiled around Cole's waist in an S shape, supporting his body and arching him up, like a lazy king looking down on everything. Ellie twisted her waist and slid upwards slowly. With a seductive expression, her snake tail slowly entered Cole's beast-skin dress and wrapped around his thighs. Leaning forward, she displayed her beautiful body and said in a teasing tone, "She doesn't know what's good for her. Why do you have to be so persistent with her?" In order to gain her trust, She had actually injured herself so badly. But in the end, didn't she still have to leave? Why don't you give it to me easily? At least, I will treat you sincerely. Cole strangled Ellie's neck and stretched out his arm, increasing the distance between them. He frowned in disdain and said with a disdainful gaze, "She is the messenger of the beast deity. How dare you compare yourself to her? You overestimate yourself." Ellie almost suffocated and her gaze became even more dazed. Her hands gently wrapped around Cole's arm that was strangling her neck and rubbed it back and forth, saying, "You are indeed. Cole, this bloodthirsty look is really captivating. Please take my life, it belongs to you." Cole sneered and flung his arm, throwing Ellie onto the ground. He took out a piece of beast skin and wiped his fingers in disgust. He said coldly, "You are so lowly that it makes me disgusted. Don't say that you belong to me. You are not worthy." Aside from the topic. Chapter 497. Ellie did not get angry. She moved her body and climbed onto Cole's body again. She peeked her head out from Cole's shoulder and her hands roamed restlessly on Cole's body. She stuck out her tongue and whispered into Cole's ear. "She said she wants to leave tomorrow. Will you let her go?" Thinking of Gu Mengmeng, Cole's expression changed slightly. His gaze became gentler and the corners of his lips curled up a little. He said, "It was not easy to snatch her over. How can I let her go?" Ellie said, "Since she wants to see her little wolf pups so badly, why not lock her up with those wolf pups?" Cole looked at Ellie coldly and said, "She is my noble owner and you actually want to lock her up? Are you courting death?" Ellie's body trembled and her face was full of infatuation. She said, "But if we don't lock her up, how can we stop her from leaving?" Cole turned around and sat back on the bed. He frowned and said, "That damn bird. If not for the fact that Agu might be suspicious and kept it as a backup, I would have killed it directly. If that was the case, Elvis and that good brother of mine should be searching around aimlessly like headless flies instead of concentrating on attacking Sauter." Ellie coiled her snake tail and snuggled beside Cole's feet. She placed her fair arms gently on Cole's thighs and her dark green hair spread over Cole's knees. She tilted her head and looked up at Cole. She said, "I heard that Elvis leveled up again when he was fighting with the 5th level beast you sent. It has only been half a year since he mated and he actually broke through 2 levels consecutively. TSK, what a top-notch product." As Ellie said, she stuck out her tongue. Her snake eyes straightened and she revealed a greedy smile. Cole pinched her lower jaw and laughed in disdain and sarcasm. He said, "I asked you to seduce him, but what happened in the end? You didn't even touch his belt, right? If you don't have enough skills, you won't be able to eat him no matter how top-notch he is." Ellie frowned in grievance. She said in a demonic voice, "That blockhead is so stubborn. He can't see anyone other than Gu Mengmeng. No matter how hard I tried to please him, he didn't even look at me. Even that brother of yours." Cole sneered and pushed Ellie away. "With Gu Mengmeng around, you are indeed too inconspicuous." With that, Cole strode away, leaving behind only one sentence. "I still have use for those 3 wolf pups. Use the right amount of poison, don't kill them." Allie shook her body and answered with a yes, before climbing out of the window. Cole sorted out his emotions. When he pushed open the door, he already looked weak and concerned. He held onto the wall and walked to Gu Mengmeng's room, knocking on the door. With Qixuan in her arms, Gu Mengmeng pushed open the door and was a little surprised to see Cole. "Why aren't you lying on the bed? Why are you walking around? What if the wound opens up again?" Gu Mengmeng said as she held onto Cole's arm and led him into the house. Cole smiled warmly and said to Gu Mengmeng, "Great messenger, if you must leave Sauter tomorrow, please let Cole accompany you." Gu Mengmeng looked at Cole's wound and frowned. "How are you going to escort them with your injuries? It's better for me to stay here and recuperate. I'll get someone else to send me off." Chapter 498. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, But your injury, Cole took 2 steps forward agitatedly and said, I'm fine, His wound split open and Cole was in a lot of pain. Gu Mengmeng went forward to support him and frowned. Look at you, still trying to be brave? Cole took the opportunity to hug Gu Mengmeng. He circled her waist with one hand and hooked her chin with the other. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with deep and meaningful eyes and said, Gu, why are you so concerned about me? Actually, you have me in your heart too, right? Although I can't leave my mark on your body, I will give you all my loyalty, you will accept it, right? Gu Mengmeng's chin was held by Cole as she stared at him quietly. Her eyes were misty and her thin lips moved slightly. Cole's smile bloomed on his lips as he kissed Gu Mengmeng's neck gently. He replied gently, Yes, I will always be by your side. Gu, I like you so much. Can you stay by my side? Let me always be by your side and take care of you, all right? Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and didn't reply. Cole looked up and blew a gentle breath at Gu Mengmeng. Then he stared intently into Gu Mengmeng's eyes and repeated hypnotically, I have your favorite big tail. It's even bigger and softer than Li's. My body is also stronger than your wolf companion, so I can satisfy you better during mating. A perfect male like me is willing to crawl at your feet and pledge allegiance to you, waiting for you to pamper me. What are you still hesitating for? Isn't it good to have me and have me? Gu Mengmeng slowly lowered her eyelids as if she had lost consciousness. Cole leaned forward and wanted to kiss Gu Mengmeng's lips. But before he could do so, he heard Gu Mengmeng's cold voice. You said, who are you stronger than? Cole was taken aback. He looked down and realized that Gu Mengmeng was holding Ellie's scale against his wound. Gu! Cole called out softly. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and said, I don't remember allowing you to call me by such a disgusting name. Cole's frozen expression only lasted for a moment before he quickly calmed down. He then took a step back and lowered his head respectfully. Great messenger! Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly. Surprised? The fox's seductive fragrance has no effect on me. Cole shook his head. It only proves that I am not good enough to move the great messenger. Gu Mengmeng nodded approvingly and said, Compared to that vixen of mine, you are really too lacking. Cole clenched his fists instinctively and looked up to meet Gu Mengmeng's smiling eyes. He slowly relaxed and lowered his head, saying, Compared to Sir Leah, I am still lacking in many aspects. Gu Mengmeng patted Cole's shoulder lightly and said, Since you have already said so much, stop pretending. To be able to endure until now before using the fox's seductive fragrance on me, you can be considered to be quite patient. Cole frowned and glanced sideways at Gu Mengmeng. You have been guarding against me from the start? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, I didn't when I first arrived. When Ian asked me to ask for your help, I really treated you as a life-saving straw, Cole, then? Chapter 499. Cole did not seem to understand as he stood on the spot, questioning Gu Mengmeng with his gaze. Gu Mengmeng smiled and lowered her head to look at her son in her arms. Her gaze and tone were so gentle that one would not be guarded against her. Who would risk their lives for someone they have no relatives or friends, and not even ask for something? It's not like Guanyin Bodhisattva who is merciful to the world. Cole frowned and asked, But Sauter is the messenger's tribe, it's only right to listen to the messenger's orders. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, Sauter is following the previous messenger of the beast deity, not me. And it's impossible to be absolutely loyal to a legend from 1,000 years ago. If you are really so loyal to the messenger of the beast deity, then the current leader of Sauter should be your big brother, and Leah should be here as a witch doctor. Just you, what right do you have to be the leader? Cole frowned and his eyes were filled with violence. When he stared at Gu Mengmeng, he could not hide his anger, as if Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, Why? Did I step on your sore spot? So this matter is not only the nightmare of my vixen, it's also your inner demon, right? Cole clenched his fists tightly as he stared at Gu Mengmeng with a frown and said word by word, I am the leader of Sauter. Gu Mengmeng nodded and admitted, Yes, you are. Don't worry, My vixen has no designs on solder. You can keep this broken tribe for yourself, we don't want it. Broken tribe? Cole took a step forward and pinched Gu Mingming's jaw. He smiled coldly and squinted his eyes, saying, he doesn't care about solder, then what does he care about? Saint Nazir, or unfortunately he can't protect either of them. I will destroy Saint Nazir, then possess you. Gu Mingming smiled and did not resist. She just looked at Cole and said, you are indeed not afraid of the beast deity. Cole laughed coldly and said, since the beast deity has never loved me, why should I be afraid of him? Gu Mingming nodded and said, that's true, a beast deity that has never manifested his spirit is indeed not worth being afraid of. However, you should be afraid of me. Cole frowned before smiling again. He caressed Gu Mingming's little face with his thumb and said with a devilish affection, why should I be afraid of you? Not only did Gu Mingming not retreat, she even moved closer to Cole. Cole did not dodge and allowed Gu Mingming's little face to come close to the tip of his nose. There were many emotions that he could not understand in those clear big eyes, but he was mesmerized by them. Every action of hers made him crazily want to have her. This was the kind of female that should stand by his side. Don't you have any doubts? Since I've already seen through it, why should I stay by your side and continue acting instead of leaving? Cole frowned and stared at Gu Mingming without saying a word. There are so many places to live. Why did I choose this small room? Cole scanned his surroundings warily but did not discover anything unusual. Are you suspecting that I'm bluffing? Gu Mingming suddenly slapped Cole's hand away and turned to sit on the side of the bed. At the same time, the wall on Cole's left started to loosen and then collapsed with a loud bang. Dust flew everywhere like billowing smoke. Chapter 500. Gu Mingming gently caressed the little snow fox's neck, as if she was thinking about something. She looked up at Cole and asked, where are my sons? Return them to me. Cole was obviously taken aback when he first saw the little snow fox, but he quickly regained his composure, as if he was not afraid of Gu Mingming's hand on the little fox's neck. He just looked at Gu Mingming attentively and said, the little masters are very safe. As long as you are willing to stay by my side, I can let you see them anytime. Gu Mingming lowered her head and looked at the snow fox she was pinching. Now, are you in a position to negotiate with me? Cole smiled and said, I have already reached the peak of 5th level for a long time. Even if my partner dies now, I will not lose my life due to the backlash of the contract. If you are willing to kill her personally, I will treat it as you being jealous because you do not like other females around me. To me, it should be a kind of reward. Gu Mingming smiled and said, although the backlash of the mating contract will not take your life, it can still severely injure you. By then, do you think you are still Elvis's opponent? Cole did not seem to take Gu Mingming's threat seriously and said, I have no opinion on you killing Jillian, but I am afraid the one who is reluctant is Leah. Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows and turned to look at Leah. But, first love? Leah turned his head away awkwardly and looked at Gu Mingming from the corner of his eye. He nodded slightly and said, we were engaged before. Gu Mingming lifted her chin and Leah immediately added, but I do not like her. The engagement is set according to the tribe rules. The witch doctor must marry the female from the tribe leader's family to maintain the stable relationship between the deity and the regime. Gu Mingming did not pursue the matter and just smiled. You don't have to explain, I believe you. Lee's smile warmed up and he hugged Gu Mingming's waist and kissed her little face. He rubbed his forehead against Gu Mingming's and said in a low voice, Mingming, I miss you so much. Gu Mingming patted Lee's back and said, I miss you and Elvis very much too, but we have to settle Cole and save the little wolves first. Leah nodded. His slender hands turned into sharp claws in front of Gu Mingming and pierced towards Jillian, as if he was trying to prove to her that he had no feelings for this little fox. Leah. Gu Mingming stopped Leah and shook her head lightly. It's not my style to kill an unconscious female. Leah shrugged his shoulders helplessly. I'll listen to you. Gu Mingming walked to Elvis's side and hugged him again. Then she said, It must have been tough during this period, right? After we save our son, I'll make you a delicious tonic. Elvis's voice was a little hoarse as he gently rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. Then he pulled her into his arms and finally heaved a sigh of relief. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.